Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you again to the City of Satellite Beach. This is a City Council meeting and a budget meeting. The date is September 19th, 2012. The time is 6 p.m. and I'd like to turn it over to Councilwoman Deanan.
Please rise. A moment of silence. Amen. And the pledge? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. According to our agenda tonight, we are going to do things just a little bit different. Mr. Malucki is here to discuss 175 and 185 monies, and sir, you can come in, and then we're going to talk about the permanent city manager screening committee with the chairwoman, Amy Nisi, proclamation to the Daughters of American Revolution, and we will get to the budget as scheduled about, I'd say 6:45, I think. And then, like last time, citizens' comments will be post all of that. Okay? So thank you. Sir, good evening. How are you? Nice to see you again.
Thank you. Nice to be back. Your Honor, Mayor, City Council, City Manager, thank you for having me back. Councilman Billman, wherever you are, in cyberspace. Wow, a lot has changed in Satellite Beach since I was here last. Some good, some probably not good, some sad, some happy. So, but it's good for me to be back. I did meet with your city manager and finance director. If I got my date right, August 24th, and I brought your acting city manager up to date on the presentation that I had delivered to this council several months ago. Don't ask me for the date. I don't recall, but it was a while back. So I brought her up to date on those items and left the books with her that I had so she could see those documents. So your city's running as a fine-oiled machine, you know, as far as all the things that I had. And then, as requested, we had some monies that I'm going to do my best to try to explain my understanding of what they are. And I've had numerous phone calls from various folks, as you can imagine, and a couple of emails. And so what I would like to do is make two suggestions to the council. Usually I go through the whole presentation, then I wait for the punchline at the end. But this one, I want you to ponder on this punchline as I go through explaining to the best of my ability what I'm going to explain, which are a lot of accounting mumbo-jumbos. And unfortunately, that's what they are. But I'm going to try to speak to these issues in English. But I'm going to recommend, first of all, some of the questions that were posed to me are best presented to your auditors of record. You have paid them to audit the books and to make statements regarding the compliance, not only the financial representation for the city, but also the compliance with various rules and regulations. And several of the questions that I received, which I'm glad to send to you, I don't think there was anything, I don't want to make it sound like a mystery kind of deal, because it's not that, but I think it was those questions specifically that kind of put my ears up to say, these are good questions, and the place to start with them are your auditors. And that's where I'd like you to consider having them come in and ask them those questions. And then if you don't like it, and I'll be glad to sit in and listen, if I don't like them or you don't like the answers, or maybe if I can't explain if I can't understand the answers, because sometimes accountants can speak to folks and we all nod and we don't understand. And you certainly are entitled to understand what you're being told. So that's the first thing. So what I've done, and I've got a set just like yours, except I got some notes in mine maybe, and I've made some copies of all of your documents, and I've lettered the first few A through E, I believe. Is that true? Lettered them A through E, maybe? A's that first page. A through E. And those come out of your audited, pardon?
You can't read the whole thing.
all the pages.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, there was a sticky note on that. Nothing was redacted.
Okay.
But if you ask Ann for your audited financial statements, the sticky note won't be on yours. I flagged certain pages. I didn't redact anything. I said, this is not a mystery. So A through E came out of your audited financial statements, and then 1 through something, maybe 9, was that the last 7, came from either your budget, your financial statements, or there were some notes, and I'll just speak to that immediately. So we put that, where did that come from? It's my understanding, because we're going to talk about these kind of in order, that the last thing that's handwritten, I believe that was done by the former city manager. I am not a handwriting expert, so please, I'm only going to tell you what I believe to be true. Fair enough? So that's where that came from. So let's just quickly go through, and there's plenty of time, I think, for questions. I'll do my best to be responsive. So page A just tells you where I got these next documents from, out of the current audited financial statements, which is why I suggested your auditors should be able to answer some of your questions. On B, what I want you to pay attention to, or what I want to address, where it says other information, okay, in addition to the financial statements, there's accompanying notes that are required to be presented to you, and the next sentence or so, it says, City of Satellite Beach, Florida adopts an annual appropriated budget for its general fund and all of its major special revenue funds. So, and there's even a budget comparison report that's been provided to you. And whether you look at those and understand those is really not so important, as you understand your auditors are telling you, we have looked at your budget and your appropriateness, and we are giving you some opinion on that. That's what I read there. On page C, the next one down at the bottom, in no particular order, there's some large differences, some not so large differences between the original budget and the final amended budget. And when I look in my wallet and I think there's $60 in my wallet, do y'all have children? Have you ever had children? Does anybody know any children? Well, I used to have children, and when I thought I had $60 in my wallet and I'd open my wallet up and there was $20 in it, and I'm pretty good about knowing where I spent my money, even if I don't always tell the truth where I spent my money, I pretty much know how much is in my wallet. I would know within a few dollars probably what's in there now, and I don't even have my wallet in my pocket. So when somebody comes back to me that says this was the original budget, and then there were all these changes, and some of them, and you probably already know these, but if you do not, when somebody hands me a piece of paper that says there was $838,034 increases in public safety in the budget, I would probably it would cause me to ask a question. Not that there's anything wrong, I would just ask the question. And that's where we're going to continue. Okay. With that in mind, we're still in the financial statements that were audited, page D, the next page. So part of the answer to this question, if you look at and please, I don't want to get any upset. We okay, Lieutenant? My book's okay? The police department's original budget was $1.3 million, and the final budget was $1.8 million. And I'm not even sure I can stand here in front of you and tell you exactly what that means, because then the actual was about $1.8 million. So I don't really know whether the budget was the budget and then you changed the budget, or the budget was the budget and then it was changed at the end of the year, which is what I think happened. But those are the questions that I would be asking somebody. Why did the budget go from $1.3 million to $1.8 million? What did we miss when we did the budget? And the next line, if you like that one, you'll love the fire department, because if you look at your total budget, this is where you spend your money. Well, that and public works. But your fire department went from $1.3 million to $1.8 million. This is last year's, this is the year ended a year ago September. Not this September, but a year ago September. So you're going to see another one that looks just like this in a few months. So not that you would ask these questions for 2011, but I'll bet you'll ask some of these questions when you see the one for 2012. I want you to. And if you won't ask the questions, you come get me, I'll ask them. Okay? So now I point out that by comparison, if you look at the line that says Public Works 1.2, and the next column 1.2, are you all following along with me? So far so good. I don't want to lose anybody here. And I apologize for you all in the gallery, because you don't get to see all these. I'm not so good with I'm sorry, I'm not so good with the PowerPoint. But this is kind of may I, Your Honor? Yes. This is kind of a workshop presentation for me, between me and the council, but all these are now public records, so you'll be able to see everything they saw. You're doing fine. Thank you. I don't want to disrespect anybody here. Okay, so Public Works, their budget and where they ended and their actual were kind of all on the same page. I don't know where they spent the money. I mean, we could find out. But everybody else was kind of in line, but there were two that were different than everyone else. And I'm trained to look at things that are the same and things that are different. So these things are different. That doesn't mean good. That doesn't mean bad. Okay, next page. Page E. And this is probably the most accounting ease you're going to get out of me. Your annual budgets are developed on a basis consistent with this magical word that says general accounting principles for government accounting. So that means that everything that you do is governed by a set of rules for government accounting, and it's supposed to be done a certain way. And your auditors are affirming for you, positively, they're telling you, we think you're doing that according to Hoyle, okay? According to the rules. Hoyle was an author that wrote a book on rules on how to play games. My wife reminds me, sometimes I'm in the dark ages. I use things like a Barco lounger that no one knows what a Barco lounger is. Your Honor, due respect, no. Don't answer.
Somebody mentioned Rin Tin Tin the other day.
I have his son. So on page 1, so now we move past the financial statements that were audited, and we're gonna get right into this this sticky thing, and I'm going to be poor with my explanation of what they are, so I'm going to just kind of wing this one. Because the question was, what about the 185 and 175 money? So I highlighted mine, so I'm going to cheat, but you'll see police pension 185 money, and then you see a blank, a blank, a blank, and then 77,772. So try to circle that and put a dot next to it. And then you see fire pension 175 number of money. So far, we on the same page? And a line, you see 85,621. So far, so good? And then further down, you see Public Works. And you see a line, and you see 98,996. Okay? So this is kind of where the rubber met the road, and I think what caused all the stir. In the past, it's my understanding that these monies were not reflected in your budget. And I can't tell you why, because why kind of would mean I got into somebody's mind and I knew what their intent was. So I can't speak to that. So I'm kind of the what guy. And the what says they weren't here, but your finance director tells me, in her opinion, and I hate to speak for her because I didn't see her behind me. So if I say something wrong, you need to help me out here. Don't let me just wallow in the mire. You know? How am I doing so far? I haven't hit the hole yet. Okay, so it was, and I say I'm not giving somebody else's opinion and they're sitting there. So it's my understanding that her opinion was that these were omitted in the prior budgets and they should not have been. And again, I'm not here to tell you why. I'm here to say this is what has been done and this is where we are. Now we can talk about some transfer of monies where monies come in and they are automatically transferred to another funding source for the retirement funds, and all that's fine. And I'm not so concerned about the money that actually coming in was recorded in the books and then spent, because that's not, I don't think, the point of this exercise. The point of this exercise, if you let me go through a few more pages, is going to be pretty clear. But at least I want you to see that this was the charge I had, was to talk about these numbers. So we're going to talk about these numbers. But that's where they came from. So the next page, on page 2, I should have made you a copy. This is good stuff. So on the next page, this is page 2 now. You're still following my little numbering scheme? Looks like this. Okay. These are little numbers now, so I had to get some better glasses. So throughout the year and then at the end of the year, your finance director is required by statute. There are certain things that can be done with the budget, and the budget is a control mechanism to keep people within the boundaries of what you set. As far as you give your kids an allowance, they get $20 to spend, they run out of the $20, they have no more money to spend without coming back to you for some more money or get a job. Okay, city is about the same way. That when the police department runs out of money, They can take money from one bucket within the police department to put it in another place and spend the money. But if they run out of all that money, they have to come to you, the parent, to get some more money. And if you have it, you take it from someplace else. That's kind of how that works. So that's the technical accounting on how our budget system works. You get a cigar box with some box holes in it to put the monies in. So what happens is we have some areas in here where we have transferred, and if it required council approval, I have no reason to believe the council did not do what they were asked to do. In other words, approve it. You may not have understood it. Maybe you did. Don't know. Wasn't here. So the first one I would point out, on line 2, it says insurance premium tax. I think that's firefighters pension, 85,621. And by the way, if you went back to page 1, you would see 85,621. Just so you see these. And the next line where it says police, 77,772. State pension money received. If you went back to page 1, you would see the 77,772. So you see that your books then are reflecting the money that was received from the state system, and then it was passed to where it needed to go. Okay? Here's the but now. A little bit further below this, we have some changes in our expenditures. And there's some large changes in the expenditures that you should ask why these things happen, because when you set the budget in good faith. I'm sure your city manager would set the budget in good faith, explain to you why they need the money. Dad, Mom, this is why I need the money, because I'm working on getting a bicycle, okay? So that's kind of where we're going with this. There's a line out here that says, it's account, 521,200, salaries and wages, police department, okay? And there's a number in there, 254,113, increase due to non-funding by CRA. Red flag. Okay? Should be asking why this needed to be changed. Okay? What happened? I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Retirement contribution, state and city, 149,375. This is where the pension money came in. In fact, I wrote down somewhere it was 284,000 or 264 was the money that came in. And then below that, retirement contribution, state city, 222,891, state pension money received. So we get this money in, but my understanding is that these were not reflected in the budget.
That's right. If you look at the 1011 budget page,
is that true?
These numbers aren't in the 1011 line.
Okay.
On Howard series, those are expenses.
Yes.
Those are increasing those expense line items.
Yes. You want to look at what I'm looking at so you can confirm what you just said? May we? That's why I said I wanted to handle this in something like a workshop setting, since you have your cheap pencil here and we can ferret it out. These are the trend line now. So you've got your revenue budget amendments that they did. This one, this one, this one. So there's a revenue side. Here's the trend line. Okay. I think we're still on track. Okay. So those three numbers where we're increasing the expenses from the budget. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. And these are all the monies that we were talking about. I believe I'm being responsive to just the ones we talked about. All right, if you'll flip to page 4, okay, the line this is coming out of your, this is now the fire department. And please, I'm not picking on the fire department. I was asked to analyze some of these budget items, and this just happens where they fall. I know it sounds like I am, but I'm really not. The line that says retirement contributions, that starts out the original budget, 139,745. The amended budget is 362,636. Okay, so your change when you made that was $147,000 change to the budget. Red flag. That's a big number. That doesn't mean good, that doesn't mean bad, that doesn't mean right, that doesn't mean wrong. What that means is, how could you be that far off? And your role is to ask the question, why? I'm just here telling you the what. Don't know why the auditors didn't tell you what, but I was asked by this council, maybe you didn't understand what you've been asking me for, but I was asked to do the what part. I know you don't want to know the why, but I'm not the why guy. So far, so good? Yes? I want to, seriously, because you work with these numbers every day. I come in from down south once every couple, 3, 4 months.
Mr. McClure?
Yes, sir.
The difference in those two numbers, original budget and amended budget, is more than 147. So I wonder what, the original budget says 139, the amended says 362. That's
$200,000.
yes, 100 plus.
Okay?
And that the current, when you said 147.
Thank you.
Is that another?
No, but that would be a question to ask. So you've got a large difference between the budget and the amended budget. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, that's more than, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Didn't mean to misspeak.
No, it wasn't.
No, it's good. No, it's just, we're trying to ferret all that. This is why I said workshop. I'm good with that. You're absolutely right. Okay, page 5. Again, retirement contributions. This one is for the police department. Okay. And I would just point out for you that you see in this case, where for fiscal year 9 and 10, we should have them come in and do that. They are so exciting. They are fun to watch. If you have little granddaughters, they're just fun to watch. So anyway, so you've got retirement contributions, and on the actual side, I don't know that there was an issue where I see in 9-10 it was 337, in 10-11 it was 455. The budget was adopted 357, 11-12. We see 405, and all I'm suggesting to you is that when you go through your line item budget process, is that coming up again? You're doing that later? You had the first reading, you done?
We had the second reading tonight.
Okay.
We spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah. And I'm sure that you kind of tweak this system now so that you know what you have spent in the past versus what you anticipate spending. And that's kind of my recommendation, is that's what you should be looking at. But you need to know what you had in the past in order to do that. So that's that one. And I had notes on some of these. The next page is for the fire department, same thing. So when you look at 249 was back in 09, 249,000 for the retirement contributions, and the 10-11 was 362, but the budget that was adopted was 209. Now I don't know if that's a good number or not. I know I would be asking I'm a financial person, so I would ask the question, how can you spend 360 but you're going to budget 200? I would just ask that question, because it doesn't, all I hear is how pensions and pension costs and underfunded pensions are a problem for cities all over the United States, not just in Satellite Beach. So pensions are, first of all, they're a hot button all by themselves, but they're a financial potential landmine, and all kinds of rules have changed for the reporting of potential pension liability costs, because in the past, whether you know this or not, they weren't recorded on the books. So we just went along and we went along and they went along, and we didn't know how much the bomb was at the end of the day. But we knew that people were going to get older. They were going to retire at 55, 56, 57, 58, or whatever that mandatory age if you're in the police department is. And they're going to collect a pension until whatever happens, whatever those rules are. Okay? And we didn't know what those numbers are. Well, today, do you remember early on when I started this, the general accepted accounting principles? Remember that part of the lesson that we taught? That now we have to reflect those. We have to be responsible. We need to have a good estimate of what those potential pension retirement benefits are going to be. And the taxpayers need to know this. You certainly need to know this as you adopt your budgets. So you need to be keenly aware of not only what your actual pension cost is, but also what your projected liability is. Do we get those actuarial statements from someone? Does somebody do those tests for us? I'm sorry, I'm asking Brenda. Do we get something from the pension people that give us whether we're underfunded or overfunded?
Every year.
Okay, let me explain what I just asked. Okay, there are actuaries, and that's like an accountant to the 15th degree that deals with statistics and life expectancies and money. This is all they do, and I don't mean to understate their importance. This is the highest level of math that I know of personally, just me personally. And so they will look at your funding, how much money you've set aside for pensions, and they will tell you whether you are underfunded, meaning you don't have enough money in the bucket, or whether you have enough money, or whether you're overfunded. Not too many people are overfunded with their pensions. And then if you're underfunded to a certain degree, they tell you how much money you have to put in the bucket. And that's where the responsible counsel part comes in. And I'm not here to lecture that part. I'm just saying that's where, but that information is available to you, and you should know what that is. Because that's a huge number, maybe not this minute, but it's coming. We all know it's coming. All right. So the last page that I've got, and I really don't know how to deal with this. So this has, I believe I know where it came from, but don't ask me to substantiate it because I can't. But of all the things in here, there was a couple of things that I just didn't understand. Granted, these were somebody's notes, so taking somebody's notes out of context is a dangerous thing, and I apologize for that. But it does get into at least where you should be when you look at changes to budgets, or you try to get into how we got to where we are. This is kind of a window into that. So please take this gently. Seriously. If you don't, I'll come back, and I'll be angry. So please take this gently. There's two things that kind of bothered me just a little bit. One was item 8, reduce the public works maintenance building grounds by $250,000. But then when and I don't have any idea why that was. Remember, I'm not the why guy. This is just the what. But then I also see that, we have all these other issues within the budget. So that kind of, I don't understand that. And then I see references to determining the costs. This is number 9 for protective services for the CRA. And for some reason I didn't highlight. There was one more on there that kind of related to, but maybe I've overlooked it. Well, when you get a chance, if you see something in there that maybe you would want to ask the question, because it escapes me now, but these were changes that were made probably before you saw the budget. So you would know that adjustments were made, and this happens all the time. I don't want you to think this is bad. I mean, we throw a budget together, staff gets together, all the departments throw up their numbers, and we pull them together, and then city manager, and I'm sure your current city manager would tell you the same thing, she probably has yellow pieces of paper just like this, where she's made notes on why they've made some changes that staff has made before you even see the budget to get you a responsible budget that's complete. And I'm sure that happens. I'm sure of it. Okay? And it happened here in the past. So this isn't wrong, but when I see transfers from or to the CRA, and I know that's been an issue, I've seen the letters from JLAC regarding whether that was a responsible thing to do, and I know that it's given this council, for at least the last 6 or 7 months, if not more, some heartburn, then those are things that you're entitled to know. Why isn't our budget process as transparent as everything else is, or that we want it to be? That's kind of maybe that was my moral part of this, and I didn't. That we want it to be. We want our budget process to be effective. And I think I've shown you that based on some of the changes to your budget at year end, I think I've given you a hint that my opinion would be it doesn't look like it was, we know there's going to be changes, but it looks like there were some changes that were anticipated. And that's as strong a language as you'll get out of me tonight. They weren't surprises. I hate to say it like that. They may have been surprises here, but you may not have known that this was not in compliance, which is why I said these are compliance tests, because if your budget that you adopted was not done in compliance, meaning there were things that were admitted, then I'm going to stop there. I'll let you fill in your own blanks on that. And that'll keep me out of trouble.
All right.
Is that fair enough? Because really, we want to make things better for the future, and that's really kind of where I think you all are as a council. How to make them better. Can I respond to any of your questions now? If I can.
Was the pass-through money, I guess this is pass-through money, 175, 185 money that was coming from the state, even though it appears it wasn't done according to GAAP, did that make it probably not best accounting practices? Because what you did then at the end is you just made an amendment when you got the pass-through money and you put it back. Is that?
I'm going to tell you a short story. Do I have time for a short story? I'm going to tell you a short story. I did a presentation in front of some 28 law enforcement officers. 2 or 3, have I told the story already? Sometimes you get to the age. This is a recent story. It's within the last year. 2 or 3 of them were from Indian River. The rest were all from Brevard County. I told them a story in a lawsuit that involved United States Steel and a golf course. And the golf course they had a budget. And the budget said you can buy seed and fertilizer and fuel and all these different things. The golf course manager for U.S. Steel's golf course needed tractors, the gators and the lawnmowers and all these things, but it wasn't in the budget. And the reason it wasn't in the budget is because the people, mom and dad, wanted to control when they bought the gators and the lawnmowers. They really wanted to be responsible about when they replaced them, because they're about $7,000 to $10,000 a pop. So here's what happened. The fella and this is a fella in this case, at the lawnmower place, he works out a deal with the seed supplier and the fertilizer guy that says, tell you what, I'm going to, because I got budget coming out of my ears for fertilizer and seed, I'm just going to go ahead and buy fertilizer and seed. Don't ship it to me. Just put a credit on my account. And the invoices will come in and I'll sign it that I received it. And when I get enough money in my bucket, I want you to ship me whatever I ask you to ship me, like a gator, okay, or a lawnmower. And they did this, and they did this for several years. This ends up in federal court, and I was there, so I've got a pretty good inside handle on how all this went, okay? And there was an expert, like I'm an expert in financial matters, a person I respected, and his testimony in front of the jury of the peers in Birmingham, Alabama, was this: no one was hurt, because it was $1 for $1. The dollar was spent for a gator, and a gator was received. The fact that it was some accounting mumbo-jumbo really shouldn't matter. It really shouldn't matter, because they didn't steal anything. You thought you were getting seed, but you didn't get seed. Instead, you got a gator, $1 for $1, everything's okay. And that was a financial expert testified. I told you that story to tell you this. I told that story to this 28 or so law enforcement people. These folks, mostly from Brevard County. And I told that story to them and asked them, is this wrong? How many said it was wrong? Would you like to take a guess? This is leading, so I'm kind of slanting it. You ought to be able to nail this one. Not a one thought it was wrong, based on the $1 for $1. You know what they said? It was a paper snafu. It was unjustified. He was trying to do the best job to run the golf course. He needed those mowers. He wouldn't have bought them if he didn't need them. And we can go all about, whether it was a buddy of his and all that, hypotheticals. But the reality was they circumvented the system by fraudulently going around to things saying they got fertilizer when they didn't, and instead they got a lawnmower. Okay? And you either sit on the side of this is okay, or you sit on the side of it's not okay. That's all there is to it. So if you believe in the budgetary process as a restriction to control people's behaviors, then you like it. And if you don't, then you don't. But your law enforcement community that I ran into 100% said, no problem. Boy, it's tough for me to do my job when that's the hill you're overcoming. And I don't know, did I answer your original question? Your original question was it okay because at the end of the year we made the adjustments? And I'm not picking on you, Your Honor.
No. I just wanted, this year we changed it.
Yeah.
It's the other way.
Right, but you see where I'm coming from, that while I can agree in principle, and I started by saying the money came in, the money came out, it's recorded on the actual basis and everything's okay, and I believe that to be true. I have no evidence to the contrary, but the reality is if the budget system was manipulated for whatever reason, then we can talk about gray all day long, suits, but it's either the right thing or it's not the right thing. And I can't make that moral, ethical judgment for each of you. I can only make it for me. So you didn't ask me for my opinion on that. You asked me the what part, and the what part was, based on these adjustments, it seems to me they were a lot bigger than maybe they could have been or should have been. In addition, staff is telling me directly they were left out. And I don't want to use any more adjectives with that. I'll just stop with they were left out. Questions? More?
Can I add one thing? Those checks were never deposited in our accounts. They were never cashed. They went from the city right to Florida League of Cities to be deposited in our trust funds. They were never deposited in our account here at the city. 175, 185 monies. Never.
They're recorded on the books as though they were, though.
We had to, for GAAP purposes.
Right. So they're recorded. Now, is there anything wrong with not depositing and then writing a check?
Yes, we cannot do that.
So we should take that money, we should deposit it.
No, we cannot do that.
We cannot
We
deposit it.
cannot do that. It's not made out to us. It is made out to our trust fund.
Okay.
Per GAAP, we cannot do that. We have to record it as a journal entry.
Right.
We have to forward it immediately within 5 days, per the Florida statutes, to our trust fund, which is held in Florida League of Cities.
Wouldn't you like to know why they send it to the city in the first place instead of the trust fund? That's just a rhetorical question.
Yeah, well, you know why, so. Proper accounting purposes.
There you go. So they've been recorded
That's
on the
control.
actual side. Yeah, on the actual side. But whether they were left out for the original budget and control purposes, I think that's where that's where you asked me to come in. Or at least I think so. Yes?
Should our auditors that we've had for the last several years
Are you going to ask that question
reported
again?
some of these items that aren't necessarily on the books to begin with?
The first thing I think I said was my recommendation to you, and I do have a second recommendation. I'm going to voice that one because it's in my head, so don't let me let go of it. I want you to ask, my suggestion to you is ask your auditors, come back and ask all those questions. Councilperson Dean, I think, had several questions that I think are appropriate. They're good questions. You're entitled to answer those, and I think the right person or persons to answer those questions, more responsive, would be the external auditors. And I hope you agree.
I agree.
They're in the best place to answer those. So I didn't want to not respect you by answering, but they have better knowledge about those.
And in the spirit of transparency, some of these questions I've asked here on the
Yeah.
dais before, and I specifically asked Mr.
Yeah.
Malucki about some of the issues or items that are in our budget and our lines now, capital asset, stormwater, and so there are questions I think we need to ask our auditors as well.
Yeah, because you're paying those external people. All right, I do have one more off topic, if I may. How am I doing for time? Yeah, this is a good one. Okay, this is off topic, but it's a follow-up from several months back. So this is my other recommendation, other than seeing your auditors. Okay. Until I think you get through this cycle, well, maybe enough time goes away, people will all be gone and then it'll go away. But I think until you do some work into your computer system and have someone come in, and this was my recommendation to the city manager, so now you're going to hear it from me directly, and you'll either give direction or you won't, and that's your call. But my suggestion to the city manager was, if you believe that there's stuff that's out there that you don't know that you think you should know, then, and I gave a name of a firm that I know, but there's no relationship between us, but I know they do this kind of work where they copy the drives and then they get the information, and then we spend a few days and we look for stuff that, for lack of a better word, that was deleted and maybe it's not complimentary. And I don't want to make it sound like a witch hunt, but when people are uncomfortable with what they think was done, and it doesn't change anything, I would point that out. Some of these things were done 7 or 8 years ago, and barring the statute of frauds, which I don't believe has a limitation, and your attorney can speak to that issue, because I certainly don't want to go there. But barring that, a lot of the stuff that was done, and it's over and done, and so going back and beating it up doesn't make it undone. But my suggestion was to kind of put that to rest. If there's stuff that people believe that was hidden at one point in time, that'll just, if you believe it was or not, that makes it go away, if it's available. And that's not something the technical staff inside can do. That's somebody that from outside does, and I don't do that work. That's not my expertise. But I saw that when I first came, that would have been my next step to go. But then we have all these changes that happened in Satellite Beach, so kind of took that heat off. There wasn't any point to going there because there wasn't any there. Did that make sense, or did I talk in a circle?
And
You caught that one?
the city manager has the name.
Yes, if council so chooses. That was my only other 2 minutes. We good?
Well, sir, I thank you for coming back.
Let's do this again next year, but
No, not during tax season? Not during-
July, August, September. Thank you so much for being so polite. I appreciate it.
Thank you, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for the information. All right, I'm going to move up agenda item number 3, which is the proclamation. We have some Dar women here, and I'd just like to read that. And Amy, it'd just be another couple of minutes. Is that okay? Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 5, is a proclamation to Susan Hunt, Rufus Fairbank, daughter of American Revolution, recognizing the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. This is an official, I don't even know how you combine those, official proclamation, City of Satellite Beach, and this is for Constitution Week, a tremendous document. We've been talking about it in here. It's great. We've already missed 2 days, so we have some catching up to do on it. So, our founding fathers, in order to secure the blessings of liberty for themselves and their posterity, did ordain and establish a Constitution for the United States of America, whereas it is of the greatest importance that all citizens fully understand the provisions and principles contained in the Constitution, whereas the 225th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution provides an historic opportunity for all Americans to learn about and recall achievements of our founders, whereas the independence guaranteed to the American people by the Constitution should be celebrated September 17th through the 23rd, 2012, as designated by proclamation of the President of the United States of America. Whereas the Rufus Fairbanks Chapter, National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution, encourages the citizens of the city of Satellite Beach to read and get to know the Constitution of the United States. Now, therefore, I, Joseph Ferrante, Mayor of the City of Satellite Beach, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th to the 23rd as Constitution Week.
I thank you all for the proclamation. We've been coming here for many years doing this, and we want this to be, everybody know about the Constitution, because that's where our country started with. And we need to keep our children knowledgeable of this, and for all of the immigrants that come in and become citizens. I mean, everyone needs to know, because we've got to keep it going like it is, and not let it change.
So, thank you. Great document. Agenda item number 4, status report. Is Councilman Billman with us, or is he? Greg, are you with us? Okay, can you hear? I guess not. Well, I guess you could hear.
Can you talk again?
Can you hear us?
I just had to turn off the video because the signal was weak, and I had to make the audio better that way.
Okay, we're going to go to the agenda item number 4, if you have it in front of you. Status report. Amy, as the chairperson, is going to talk about the Permanent City Manager Screening Committee. Hi, Amy. Welcome back.
Hi.
Your committee.
I know we're on a short timeline. You guys have a time
Sorry,
certain for budget,
yes.
so I will be very quick. Our committee has met 3 times. 3 of the other committee members are here. Fred Bailey's here, Don McClendon's here, and David Schechter, and we've all worked very hard. Trevor Lowing could not be here tonight, but I wouldn't be here tonight without their hard work. You should have everything in your Friday packet that the committee has done up to this point: the job posting and description, the timeline, and the Satellite Beach perspective. We're looking at a 30-day posting, and after that time, we're hoping to come with you with our 10 top applications. The committee did ask if we could have a workshop with you towards the end of the 30 days, just to talk with you about where we're at with the applications and to have some sharing of information, because it's just because we know how busy your meetings are tonight. I know we talked to Lenore about looking at the last week in October. Possibly that Monday, Lenore, was that what it was?
I actually put it in the agenda packet. It was October 29th, which is a Monday.
Okay, thank you.
So we're hoping that that works for all of you, but the committee has worked very hard. We're very excited with the progress we've made, and we're looking forward to what I think will be some outstanding candidates coming before you. We want to have the posting go out on Friday at the earliest, pending any questions or concerns council has. So hopefully you've had a chance over the weekend to look at what we've come up with, and if there's any issues you need us to address before that posting goes out.
I have a question. Does everyone have this? What is the difference between?
Huh? The strike-throughs.
Okay. Well, I do have a question regarding the strike-throughs. Where did the strike-throughs come from? What's in the package is not what was on the dais tonight.
Lenore, which was
What happened is the last time the committee worked on it, Mr. Lowing put the strike-throughs to show that the committee discussed it and deleted those items. And then he cleaned up the version, which I gave you tonight.
Okay.
Thank you. I didn't have that one in front of me. That was just to show you our last committee work. We tried to come to consensus on certain items and try to make it as clear. We used a rating system. Both Trevor and Don worked very closely to have a rating system so that we could look at all the different qualities that the city might look for and try to limit it down to a few manageable ones. Otherwise, we could have had a 3-page list of requirements, and I don't know of anyone that could have met every one of those requirements.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
The strike-through was through prepare annual budget and attend all council meetings. Why? And why was that?
We thought that was just kind of a given. That was in the city charter.
It is in the charter. Okay.
So what we were trying to do is what are those attributes outside the expected that we would want to see?
I got it. Thank you.
Look, Amy, this is a great.
Yes, Trevor put that part together. So you can see where we're ending up. The reason we think we might need a workshop, we'll know where we're at with the applications. We'll get a feel for where we're going. We've had some people pose to us, what are you going to do if you don't see the type of applications you're looking for, or something comes up? And we want to be prepared. We figure it's easier to have a meeting on the calendar and cancel it if we don't need it than to have to schedule one last minute.
Okay. So you're going to do something this Friday for 9:20 you have on here.
We're ready to go ahead and post. We didn't want to do any posting unless we knew we had all of council's agreement that you're comfortable with the work that we've presented.
And then within a month, you will get back all the resumes, and then within 30 days, then you will present to the council.
What we're looking at is we're going to be looking at those applications as they come in, and each of the individual committee members is going to use their own process to whittle down to at least the top 15, and we're going to bring those to a meeting of our own, and then hopefully we'll all have pretty close to the same 15 and get it down to 10. Now, one thing Lenore is going to help us with, or someone in the office, is as these are submitted electronically, she's going to make sure they at least meet the minimum requirements, so that we'll have 2 different piles from the very beginning. If there's someone that's not even meeting the bar that we've set, we won't even kind of consider those. We're only going to look at the ones that meet the minimum requirements.
I would say that, City Manager, that, Amy said that those will come in and go to Lenore. Probably you can figure out who you would like to, if it is Lenore.
Lenore's been my contact, so I figured if it wasn't Lenore, it was somebody whatever works.
We'll just figure that out. Okay, that's great. We'll see who does that. This is excellent. I thank you and all the members of your committee. You guys have anything? Go ahead.
We got elections coming up. We have the timeline here. It appears that the selectee job, offered job, is going to be under the sitting council here.
It could be, yes.
Okay. Because with the election, it could be at least one new member, as many as 3 new members. So this sitting body is going to select somebody possibly and go through the whole process where possibly 3 new members are going to do the actual hiring of that person?
Well, the last part of that timeline that Trevor put together, we focused real hard on what the committee's timeline was going to be. We wanted you guys to have flexibility on how long it was going to take to contact individuals, schedule those interviews. In all likelihood, it will have to extend out. So that timeline was just a suggestion from the committee on how it might play out. Given what you said, it could play out differently. Our deadline that we were told is that you needed to have an offer in place, I think by December 18th or December 20th, to be within the 180 days. So we tried to give you a timeline that fit that, but you could adjust your portion of it to what you feel comfortable with. So if you wanted to go out a little bit further than that, or if you wanted to short up, we were just focusing on the 30 days.
We'll probably discuss that on the 3rd or the...
And that's where we thought the committee, where it may start off as a joint meeting, and then you guys may want to go from there and decide how you want to handle it once you see the applications we give you.
Thanks so much. Floyd?
My only question is, I noticed that one of the strike-throughs was eliminating the bachelor's degree education certification.
We had a lot of conversation about that one. We were initially 2 and 2 on whether bachelor's was minimum or postgraduate, and what we went to is back to the emails that council gave us, and the majority of the council members put on their recommendations that they wanted postgraduate, so we used that as the tiebreaker.
Okay.
So yes, it was something we talked quite a bit about, and we could not come to consensus. And we only had 4 committee members there at that time, so we didn't have a 5th one to overrule, so we went and looked at all of the emails that you sent us, and every single one, I think 4 of them, had postgraduate beyond bachelor's.
In considering the ties, what was the general discussion? Where was the division? Can you describe
The division was whether you wanted somebody coming in that could jump in and know what they need to do and have experience, or whether you wanted to think outside the box, someone that may come from a totally different field of life and private sector, that sort of thing. And the committee was 2 and 2 on that. There were 2 people that felt like maybe trying somebody new outside of the box would be good. The other 2 felt like we didn't want somebody cutting their teeth on Satellite Beach and adding to what I just heard from the financial thing might be some very sticky situations. The concern was there's a lot of legal processes involved with public administration, a lot of laws, and anything that requires an attorney, nothing personal, Mr. Beadle, costs a lot of money. And so we were thinking having somebody that understood the processes, understood the law, understood public administration, really took someone beyond a bachelor's. Those were the 2, and I said I fell on the master's side, so that's why I'm talking more along that side. But there are other committee members here, if you'd like to hear from them, who did feel bachelor's.
No ICMA.
We decided that what we wanted to do is we kind of thought of that as desired but not required. We were trying to stick with the philosophy of let's just set a bar and see who comes in above that bar. We didn't want to set the bar so high that we scared away what could potentially be some outstanding individuals.
You could do just bachelor's degree and ICMA, or postgraduate.
And that's where we figured your council may want to rule on how you want that to work.
That may take care of Lloyd, because Lloyd, bachelor's degree and ICMA qualified.
What's it take to be ICM? I don't even know what it takes to be qualified with ICM.
I'm not sure what you need to be qualified, but I know that it is a good organization where you get continuing education and stuff
Okay.
like that.
And then you have to maintain that certification.
And you have to maintain
It's sort
it.
of like a PMP or something like that.
Yeah, so that may alleviate, put the bachelor's degree back in with that quality.
Because the ICMA is a credential.
Yeah.
I guess I was looking at the MBA in public administration, where you have semester-length courses on dealing with public finance, dealing with public law, public management, and I guess
No
I
argument that.
And as a resident of Satellite Beach, I have to admit, I was worried about someone coming in with great intentions, but we all know about the road of great intentions, and
Right.
I just didn't want to head down that road.
And Amy, you said that we all submitted, I think, a list of
Yes.
qualities that we were looking for. 4 people wanted.
At least 3. I'm thinking 4. I could dig through but a majority of council did say postgraduate.
Okay.
And if we're not getting enough applications, that's where something we may need to go back and look at and see if we're missing somebody.
When's your next meeting?
That October 29th when we meet with you, if you're willing to meet with us.
Oh, so, but you're going to meet when you get applicants in?
We're going to be
in the next
meeting
30
during
days.
that time, but we were going to wait and touch base with you guys to make sure we were still on the right track as we pull it together, and then we will be ready to hand you after that joint meeting those 10, unless you want us to be done before then.
I think it's good. I think Scott makes a good point, and we'll see. They could be ready, and we could wait for the next council before we could have this. It depends on where we are, but at least you'll be ready, and the hard work will be done.
We think most of the postings, people are going to come in sooner, but we found that the general theme out there when we looked at other postings were 30 days.
Okay.
So we wanted to give, adequate time.
Let me see if Greg has anything, then we'll just wrap. Greg, you got any comments?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a real problem with the requirement for another, I have a real problem with the requirement for municipal government administrative and managerial experience as being a required experience versus a desired experience. The argument that Ms. Nisi made with regard to what we just heard from Mr. Malucki, and that we don't want to have that problem by having people who don't have municipal government experience is specious in my mind, because in fact we had people with municipal government experience, in fact with years and years of municipal government experience, yet we found ourselves with the same with this problem that we had. I am going to be, I will not vote, I will not approve, I will not give my approval. You guys can all outvote me, obviously, but I will not vote for requirements that keep people from the private sector from potentially getting this job. That's my biggest thing. My second biggest thing is I think 30 days is a little too long. Let's face it, this thing has been on the street now for a while already. I mean, for all intents and purposes, people who are interested already know about this. So I think we can get away with a couple of weeks worth of it being out there. But I have a real hard problem with that requirement, and that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you. Amy?
Okay, Mr. Bowman, I guess I'm confused then, because the email you sent to the committee has for your number 1 required, says postgraduate degree in related field, public administration, MBA, statistics. It specifically stated postgraduate degree.
He's not, that's not his concern. His concern is under the experience.
Okay, that's what I was understanding.
Seeking municipal government experience.
Okay, yeah, we
Okay.
Well, I think that we had choices when we talked about the hiring process, and we chose to appoint a committee, and that's the committee's recommendation, and I'm going to stay with the committee's recommendation of 5 years progressive responsible municipal government administration. We could have used the headhunter, which we chose not to do. In fact, my choice was to use the headhunter. We agreed to establish a committee, and this is the committee's recommendation, so I'm going to stay with the committee's recommendation.
Okay.
But this committee, as Ms. Nasi stated, was a 2-2 tie on that specific issue. Hence, I think that council should make the deciding vote.
No, they were.
Mr.
Greg-
Schechter's actually here, who wasn't at that
Greg,
meeting.
the 2-2 was on, excuse me, the 2-2 was on the postgraduate degree, the line above that.
Yeah, it wasn't on the other stuff.
So, if a bachelor's would suffice or a master's.
All I'm telling you is like Mr. Einstein said, if we if we keep doing the same thing over and over, we have no reason to expect anything different to happen. And that's my point. And the argument that we just went through with Mr. Malucki and the statement that was made regarding we don't want to go down that road by not having somebody with municipal experience, again, is specious because we had a 26-year person with that experience, and yet we had that problem. I would like to see something vastly different, and I'm just getting my statement on the record.
Thank you. Okay, I heard.
You know, I have to agree with him. I think that we need to be a little bit more flexible in that required experience, because one of the things that well, let's use the CRA for example, and I'll speak of my own experience in that regard. It was my curiosity, all right, not knowing everything that there was to know about the CRA that caused me to read the statute and interpret that statute the way I did, that pointed to the inconsistencies with the way Satellite Beach was using their CRA money. All right, if I had been, you know, someone who, you know, if I had just gone along and assumed that everything was fine, all right, without that curiosity, it never would have been uncovered, or it may not have been uncovered as quickly. All right. My point here is that when someone comes in that isn't a dyed-in-the-wool public administrator, they're going to have perhaps a little bit more curiosity and tendency to look into processes in an innovative and curious way to make sure that we are doing things in keeping with current guidelines and responsible management principles. I mean, I can give you other examples where curiosity and being new to the process caused me to look into regulations like the campaign treasury regulations. You know, this evening I had to file paperwork for that, and I hadn't listed occupations of certain contributors. Well, that's because in bold print on the regulation, if you read the regulation, it says contributions of $100 or less, you do not need to put that information on the form. And again, I know that other candidates were putting that information on the form and they didn't need to. So my point here is that the curiosity component of someone coming in who is not purely a public administrator of a municipal government can bring some benefit to the search.
Well, can I make a suggestion?
Okay, go ahead.
And I'm taking this from your email, Mr. French, because you did have the master's degree in public administration, 5 years of progressively responsible municipal government administration. So we went from that, but your third point, maybe this will help if we added this third point where you said an equivalent combination of education and sufficient experience as a local government manager with measurable management and community accomplishments. Is that still, I'm just going by what you wrote here. Demonstrated success as a leader of major municipal or industry departments.
Or industry, yes.
Okay.
I would go with that. Because I think that we could pull an industry leader into this mix that could certainly be very successful as a city manager.
Well, I think that this situation, I think with typically I guess the employment time frame for a city manager in Florida to even decrease from 7 years now to 5 years. There's a lot of quality city managers out there, and if it were up to me, there would be 10 years of experience on here. This city needs to get moving and needs somebody in here who's qualified, who can really hit the ground and run and get us moving. I've been here for 10 years, and I feel like we've moved backwards. I just don't agree with it, and I think we really need somebody in here who can come in the door and get moving. And I agree with the committee, and I agree with the experience requirement. I've worked with municipalities since I was 21 years old. I'm now 48, a long time, and there are a lot of municipalities that govern themselves and govern themselves well.
Greg?
If I could make a point. I understand Ms. Deenan's point. However, I would just point out that a non-city experienced person came in as the interim city manager and look at the progress that we have made in just that period of time. And again,
Mr. Bowman, that's your opinion of the non-city manager experienced interim. I don't necessarily agree with your opinion. I think we've focused primarily on the budget, and there are a lot of issues that I've asked to be put on the agenda that I'm going to go over this evening that have not. So I didn't agree with appointing someone who didn't have managerial experience as the interim, and I don't agree with definitely not hiring someone who has no experience as our permanent city manager. And I believe that the community would feel the same way.
But Ms. Dean, if you had the same issue with an experienced city manager with 26 years, you would ask for things to be on the agenda that didn't get on the agenda. So that's not, that to me is a specious argument. The fact that this budget came out the way that it did, and that the city department heads are working so closely together now, is a good indication that somebody without city manager experience, but that has outside professional experience in a related field, is capable of doing the job. And I think what we should do is we should ask the committee to change the requirement to municipal government experience or related field experience, just like Mr. French had said.
You know what, I'm just not going to budge on this, so I'm going to make a motion that we leave it as is, and we'll see if it gets seconded and see where it goes from there.
I didn't hear the motion.
Make a motion that we leave the required experience to 5 years as is, as recommended by the committee that was appointed by the city council.
That's it. I'm not to that yet. Okay, I have a motion by Councilwoman Deanan. Do I have a second? Okay, let's work through the, I'm sorry,
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that the council direct the committee to revise their required experience to read municipal government experience or equivalent industry or other equivalent experience.
I'll second that.
Okay, or, go ahead. Is it still 5 years?
Yes.
And masters.
Okay, municipal government or
Equivalent industry experience.
equivalent industry, does that mean 5 years as a CEO of an industry?
Well, that would be up to the board to consider what equivalent would be. But I would say equivalent industry or non-governmental organization experience, because there are plenty of people who are not running cities but are running non-governmental organizations or industries that have very similar chief executive experience. And I think to keep those people out of the mix does the city wrong.
Okay. So you're talking chief executive, though, Greg?
I'm talking chief executive experience in industry or non-governmental organization.
Chief executive.
Chief executive, okay.
I'm kind of on the fence. I think that if someone has, we discussed, I attended one of the meetings that the committee discussed. I think someone with a postgraduate degree and with an MBA, you really get into the meat of administering and running businesses in the city and things like that. So I don't necessarily want to eliminate anyone. I think in my mind that probably 90% of the applicants, if not more than that, are going to be past city managers with experience. May have a couple of people that fall under the other category of non-government experience. So,
okay. I'll tell you what. I do have a motion and a second. I would like to get some quick public comment because we got to get into the budget. Amy, you can sit there, or Don, you want to speak as a committee member? By the way, if you have a white Volkswagen Jetta, it's not going to start after the meeting because your lights are on. Okay. Don, you speaking as a committee member or as a citizen?
Committee member.
Okay. You can come up. Come on. Ian.
I don't have a Jetta.
Okay, we'd like to get through this as
Okay.
quickly as possible, but you still have... name
Real
and-
quick, as the chair said, this requirement was aired out, and I requested, we've got the matrix, we had the scoring, we ranked them by percentile. The top winner by 6%. Not talking a lot, when you're talking 80 to 74%. I did a lot of research into this, and this did not come from anything that Mr. Billman had suggested just now. This was my research, and I actually found it on LinkedIn, and it reads, qualified candidates must possess a master's degree in public administration, business, or a related field from an accredited institution. A minimum of 10 years of executive level management experience, preferably in local government, is required. 3 to 5 years experience as a city manager in a community or comparable complexity is preferred. Candidates with experience as an assistant city manager in a larger community will be considered as well. And then that's the end of that. But at the end of the day, go ahead.
No, I just want to know, where, the matrix came from where?
We developed a matrix
And then you went to
to basically weight your input.
Okay.
It was the only way that we saw would be fair to council, because you guys gave us input. We weren't totally unbiased. We didn't share our input. Lenore graded that, she tallied the input, so totally impartial.
Thank you, Don.
And the only one other thing is we need a submission deadline date where we can update these drafts, and Brenda just pointed out a typo on one of the documents. So we need one day or so to get that. Thank you.
We'll have something tonight. Thank you.
Hello, Kathleen Arcarola. I agree with Mr. Bill.
Resident?
We don't have to do that anymore, right? Yes, resident.
You don't have to say your address.
Yes, resident. You know that.
That was your
It's not going to hurt, yes, it was my suggestion. It's not going to hurt us. It's only going to help us to encompass the most gifted and talented individuals. And if they haven't worked in a city municipality, that doesn't mean they're not gifted or talented. Look at Donald Trump. If he came in here and wanted to retire and run our city, we can say no because you haven't worked in a municipality. I don't think so. I mean, I don't care for Donald Trump, but he definitely knows how to make money, doesn't he?
Yep.
So I agree with Mr. Billman. It's not going to hurt us to expand the horizon a little bit. And besides that, we talked about refreshing the city, giving it a new look, coming up with some innovative things, not just sticking with the slow and boring governmental type of situation. So I'm for a little bit of spicing up, some change, and someone that could bring some intuitiveness and some difference to our city. So I agree with Mr. French and Mr. Billman on this, and I'm not sure how you're doing, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, Mr. Hinton.
Charles Hinton in the city. I thank Ms. Den for speaking against Mr. Billman. Mr. Billman dominates this council so greatly that every time he says something, somebody else responds, he always gets a direct response back. So he demonstrates this. I'm greatly concerned to feel that you think that a city manager who deals every day with state, county regulations and laws, the whole system builds around the knowledge that you must have to do an effective job at this. And that to take a brilliant manager off the street who doesn't know any of those things, I think is a bad thing to do. So.
Thank you. Sir, in the back? No. And then Gabe, you'll be next.
I respect what the gentleman just said.
Name and...
Patrick Mulcahy. I am a resident of the city of Satellite Beach. I'll be speaking later on issues with city management.
We understand.
The problem that I see, and Mr. Billman pointed out excellently, we're in this mess because of years of experienced city management. To close the door is just simply outrageous. we're dealing with a level of incompetence. What I heard earlier, you have your attorney here. I'm used to dealing with union issues, and if funds are being used not what they're appropriated for, I know in my union activities, the Department of Labor would be down on us, and we would be getting arrested for misappropriation of funds. It sounds like this city now, and the debates that I hear here, this meeting, my understanding, is not for me. This is your meeting. I'm here basically as a guest. And the more dialogue between you council members, disagreements, that is where you're going to keep your system straight. And then it's up to you to decide what is best.
Gabe.
Gabe Fine, I'm a resident. I totally and absolutely agree with Councilwoman Deanan. I think that we should hire the best qualified city manager. The city manager's position is a degreed position. He's a professional position. Mr. Billman's, Councilman Billman's point and what he's trying to do, I think it stinks of cronyism. We've seen that done before. We have a sitting council person that got that way, got appointed that way. The city was never a mess. It's not a mess. We had a fantastic city manager for 26 years. The previous city councils and the city manager complied with the citizens' wishes at that time. We've done a lot of good things over the past 26 years, and I'm sure we'll do a lot of good things if some attitudes on council change. Thank you.
John Fergus, 135 Maple. I am sure what I'm going to say will change nobody's mind, but for the record, no competent legal authority has found that anything was done with us wrong with the CRA. This council has avoided getting an authority by sending something to the state that the city attorney had prepared.
John.
And it does relate because that issue and Mr. Malucky's today's visit both besmirch the previous city manager's reputation, and then that's used an excuse to say, gee whiz, we need to get somebody else because city managers are trash. Well, that says if there were a military officer that was incarcerated for crimes against humanity, let's say, or some heinous crime, does that mean all military officers are wrong, or that we ought to hire civilians as military officers? It's bizarre, the fact using unsubstantiated allegations about CRA misactivities and accounting misactivities is just beyond the pale. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Fred Bailey, resident. I wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Billman because I think we can consider someone without always years of managerial experience in a city. We're looking for someone that's the CEO that can lead this city. There's lots of people out there that can do that. The city has an excellent staff right now, has a well-trained staff, so we're looking for a manager and a leader. So I agree with Mr. Billman and Mr. French.
Thank you, sir.
Stephen Kingston from Satellite Beach. I really enjoyed the debate tonight. It's what makes City Council go round. It's important to recognize what we're trying to accomplish, and that's to make the city better. So making it a black or a white based on this one single criteria really does limit the city. If you want the best quality applicant, I would say you have to kind of moderate that with what is the responsibility level the individual would have to have. Have they had to have a $50 million budget that they've executed, a $10 million budget? There's got to be a number. Right now we've got about an $8.9 million budget. We're under discussion tonight. So somebody ought to have at least that kind of capability, proven capability, demonstrated capability. So along with Mr. Councilman Billman, I would have to agree and concur with his recommendation.
Thanks, Steve. All right, I'll bring it back to the council. We do have a motion. Lenore, it's been a while. Can you read the motion from Councilman Billman, seconded by Councilman French?
Not sure if I got it right.
Okay, that's okay. We can say it. You want to say it, and then we'll adjust it. Greg, are you listening?
I'm clear.
Okay, go ahead.
It's directing the committee to revise the required experience and to ask for chief executive or governmental experience or equivalent industry or non-governmental experience. That's kind of what I have.
Was there a number of years on that?
That was to remain, I thought it.
As is 5 years?
The 5 years is fine. Does everything else stay, or does it just go to?
5 years of progressively responsible municipal or executive.
Or equivalent executive level experience in industry or non-governmental organization.
Okay.
So is that just changing the one requirement and keeping all the rest of it, or is it getting rid of everything and going down to this one?
Just doing the first bullet.
Okay.
Lenore?
Are we going to have discussion?
Yes. Okay.
I do want to say a few things. First of all, to say that all city managers are clowns, I guess you would say, or whatever, it's really unfortunate. There are a lot of great city managers out there, including the city of Bellmore, who's just wonderful, energetic, young, ambitious, knows the process, and I think it's a disservice to staff to come in, the department heads to come in with someone who doesn't have city manager experience. It would be really unfortunate. It'll be another transition period for them, just chaotic for them. It's going to be chaotic for us. And the fact is the city manager works for the city council. So, you know, you can say it was the city manager for the past 27 years, but you can blame it on the city council also. So I just don't agree with it. I'm going to say that again for the record. I think it would be really unfortunate. I know where it's going. I know where the vote's going, so go ahead and call the question.
We can still select a person like you described.
Yes.
I mean, it's
Yes,
just,
just like
this just opens up the field of candidates a little
Well,
bit.
and I also thought it was unfortunate when we did interview the interim that you really didn't even pay attention to those interim candidates and their qualifications, so I'm also putting that on the record. You brought them in, but the decision was pretty much already decided that evening. And I just think it's a disservice to the citizens, the taxpayers of this community, and it reeks of cronyism to me. That's all I want to say for the record.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Greg, discussion?
Done.
Lenore?
Councilman Medina?
No.
Vice Mayor Rhodes?
No.
Councilman French?
Yes.
Councilman Billman?
Yes.
Mayor Fontaine?
Before I vote, I would like to say I think the city took some hits tonight that were not appreciated by me as a member of the council. We have a beautiful city. This city is outstanding. I am happy to live here 25 years, and I feel really bad that some people have gone up there and just slapped us in the face. I really feel bad about that. I'm going to vote no. Okay, so the motion passes. Motion is defeated, 3-2. All right, Amy, thank you. You have direction. Okay.
Do we have direction? Because I thought.
Yes, let's get them out starting. But you thought what? I'm going to start on Friday.
Okay, so Lenore, we're ready to go on Friday. I'll call you tomorrow.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we're going to start our budget hearing. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
He made a motion to adjust it, but did we make a motion to actually accept what they presented?
We did not.
That was my concern, yeah.
Okay, do you want to do that? Okay, I guess to make it probably easier, let's make a motion to either accept the select responsibilities, personal skills, education, experience, and desired experience presented to us.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Lenore. We have a motion by Councilwoman Deanan, so moved. Do we have a second?
Can you say it again?
Just to approve it as written.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilwoman Deanan, second by Vice Mayor Rhodes. Any discussion, Council?
Yes, we're doing this city a disservice by not opening up the aperture for experienced city manager.
Lenore?
Councilmember Billman?
No.
Councilman French?
No.
Vice Mayor Rhodes?
Yes.
Councilwoman Deanan?
Yes.
Mayor Ferrante?
Yes. Motion passes 3-2. At this time, we'll start agenda item number 6, which is the fiscal year 2012-2013 budget. There are 3 parts. One is the public hearing, which we'll discuss first. Part B is ordinance 1060, which will be read by our city attorney, and then ordinance number 1061, which will be read by our attorney. As last time, I tried to lump everything into one public hearing. Kind of didn't work as well, so we'll start off with 6A, public hearing. Ann.
Okay, this is the proposed fiscal year 2012-2013 annual budget, and this is the detailed budget for this upcoming fiscal year as proposed by council on the first budget hearing that we had on September 5th. We're going to talk a little bit, it's almost a little bit of a recap, talking about the city budget process. Why do we prepare a budget? Well, we have legal requirements. We have to comply with federal regulations and with Florida statutes for city government. And this serves a variety of functions, preparing a budget does. One of them is accountability. One of them is as a management tool. One is as a planning tool, and the fourth is as a public information document. With regard to Florida statute requirements, we're talking about a fiscal year that runs from October 1st through September 30th. And we are required by law to have a balanced budget. And of course, all of you have heard about TRIM, Truth and Millage. And this is required notifications to property owners and the general public. And council is required to hold 2 public hearings, of which this is the second, every year to adopt the millage rate and to adopt a budget. Satellite Beach financial policies include budget planning and presentation. And of course, we follow the generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. And these, of course, are nationally recognized standards. We're also required to follow the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. And council holds multiple meetings. As you know, many of you have attended since the very beginning, since July 2nd. We've had many meetings and workshops from July through September to the outcome and where we are today. Council sets the proposed millage rate mid-July, and this again is required by TRIM. And I know some people said, well, why are we setting it now? This is a requirement. We cannot change that. Final adopted millage rate can be lower than the proposed rate, but it cannot be higher without starting the entire process over again. And council, as we've said, holds 2 public hearings in September setting the millage rate and adopting the budget as required by TRIM. Now, this particular chart shows the tax rate that has decreased, proposed tax rate has decreased, rollback minus 0.5, which is actually 8.3559. Now, this shows a non-homestead property, and as you can see, the 1112 shows a tax calculation with an assessed value of $200,000, and of course no exemption, no homestead exemption since it's a non-homesteaded property. Then you have your taxable value of $200,000 and the tax rate from 1112, 8.5285, which then yielded the figure of $1,705. Now, when we're looking at the proposed fiscal year 12-13, we're looking at a tax calculation again based on that same assessed value, with a tax rate of rollback minus 0.5%, which yields a property tax, now this is just for Satellite Beach, of $1,671. And as you can tell, it's a very simple calculation because you're using the per 1,000 of assessed value times your tax rate to come up with those figures. And the next is a homestead residential property, and again, the difference there would be the homestead exemption is $50,000, and you can see the totals on that for the current tax rate and the proposed tax rate, and that's a difference of about $24. Now, where do your tax dollars go, and what is the percentage that's allocated? 25% of each tax dollar goes to Brevard County. 35% of each tax dollar goes to the school board. A little bit more than 1% goes to independent special districts, and 3% of each tax dollar goes to voter-approved debt, and that would be for Brevard County, and that would include your EELS, which is in your endangered lands, and the South Brevard Recreation District. And of course, 36% then of each dollar goes toward the city services that you receive. Now we're going to take a look, and we've looked at this before in detail, sometimes line by line, the general fund expenditure overview, and these are the citywide services that you have. You're looking at city council, which is legislative, your administration finance, general government, police, fire, building and zoning, public works, and recreation. And you can tell by the pie chart there that we're looking at, let me look at police here. Police is the biggest chunk there at almost 29%. Fire is about 18%, and so on. And of course, up to the left it's not that easy to see, but it's inter and intra-fund transfers. And again, that would be, for instance, the biggest portion of that is to the CRA. And then you also have additions to reserve right next to that at $143,081 that we are proposing to put into reserves. Now, looking at a general fund revenue overview, we're looking at property taxes, which is about 58% of the total revenue that comes in. And other taxes would be your local option gas tax, communication service tax, and the local business tax. Your franchise and permit fees, you're talking about building permits, you're talking about electricity franchise fees, gas franchise fees, waste management franchise fees as well. Intergovernmental, we're looking at state revenue sharing, the 1/2 cent sales tax, federal grants, and the first responder program, which are the lion's share of that. And then your charges for services, that would be mainly from the Recreation Department for program activity fees, rentals, and the like. Fines and forfeitures, you're talking about the court fines and forfeits there. And miscellaneous would be basically your interest on investments. And other revenue sources would be transfers. The lion's share of that is the transfer from the Stormwater Utility Fund. And there you have your pie chart there as well, showing, and as you can see, the property taxes in the lower right hand is approximately 58% of the total general fund revenue. Now we're going to look at the all funds summary overview. And we've already talked about in detail the general fund. And the Community Services Special Revenue Fund is a revenue source such as state and federal grants, donations, user fees, and transfers from the general fund. And then the Stormwater Utility Fund, this you will see on your property tax as a $65 non-ad valorem charge below the line. And this is the stormwater utility assessment, and this is a dedicated revenue source that will be used to renovate the city's aging stormwater system and mitigate any flooding problems. The Law Enforcement Trust Fund, this fund accounts for money and property that's confiscated by the police from owners who were arrested during the commission of a felony crime, and this would be awarded to the courts and then subsequently to the city. Community Redevelopment Agency Fund, this was established by City Council in June of 2002. And these revenue sources are the TIF. They're actually increment revenue contributions that come from both Brevard County and the City of Satellite Beach, and they're based on increases in property tax collections over those in fiscal year 2002. And finally, your Capital Assets Fund, the funding of which is a dedicated 6% utility tax on power, proceeds from the 6% utility tax on electricity, metered natural gas, liquefied petroleum gas, and manufactured gas are used to fund capital assets with a minimum cost of $3,000 and a life expectancy of over 1 year. And we can see the pie chart, and of course you're looking at a total here now under $12 million at $11,337,059 as a total. And I just want to point out a couple quick budget highlights. This year we created a new revenue and debt schedule for the Stormwater Utility Fund. It shows the principal, the interest, the debt payment, and when it's actually going to mature, in other words, be paid off. The CRA and also the capital asset leases, again, principal and interest and your debt payment schedule. So I think that was a very informative one-page sheet that you can find. And remember, this is posted online, so you can access the full budget there. The other issue is that the Beachcaster is funded in this upcoming fiscal year at $17,000. We also have funding in there for technology, as ours is what you would call ancient. And we have shown a total decrease of $584,012, or 7.1% decrease in the general fund departmental budgets that we have talked about for fiscal year 12-13 as compared with last year. And again, I'd just like to point out something that I'm proud of, is having put over $143,000 into reserves, which is over 2,000% more than we put in last year. So that's actually, I would say, a significant achievement. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. This is the public hearing of Part A. Are there any general council comments? You have some general.
Yeah, I do. I really appreciate Mr. McLaughlin coming in. I wish he had gotten here earlier, because I do have some additional concerns regarding the budget and some of the things that I have seen and some of the questions I have asked that really need to be asked of our auditors. So I would like to see the auditors come in at the next meeting so that we can ask these important questions, and I would like to make a motion that the auditors be on the agenda at the next meeting to ask for some questions, because I still have some concerns, and I'd like to go over them. I had the opportunity to attend this Stewart City Council meeting, not last Monday, but the Monday before that, and they actually set their tentative millage rate and adopted their budget in the same evening. And what they had done, and it just so happened that I was there, so I sat in on the meeting, they actually went all summer line by line through the items with their department heads, and it was a different process than what we had here. It's been very frustrating for me trying to figure out what changes were made from each budget to each budget. And I do have a question. I would like to know why in our budget now the department head recommends, city manager recommends, and city council recommends, why those numbers are all the same across the board, since there were changes.
Right, and as I sent the email to you, this is an iterative process. In other words, as we make progress through this from the 5th, the department heads had recommended a certain amount, the city manager had recommended that same amount, and then at the September 5th meeting, the vote was that they also recommended, they accepted that amount, which it actually appears as city council recommends. I don't believe you were at that meeting.
No, I wasn't at that meeting, but I'm not seeing those numbers the same across the board. There were different numbers, and I just want to say for the record, I've also gone back and looked at other budgets where they're different because they were changed by the city council. They were decreased or increased. And so I'm a little confused why they're the same across the board for the department, because there were some changes. There were different things that the city manager recommended, and then we changed. So it was very difficult to put it together, and I don't understand why those numbers are all the same. I have an issue, too, with, and I know you've seen a lot of documents come across the last couple of days. I'm trying to piece a lot of things together. I have an issue with the South Patrick Drive DOT money being in the CRA. That $179,500, that agreement is between the DOT and the city. Now, whether or not it was transferred, why or when, I have no idea, but that is not a CRA project, and there's no agreement between the DOT and the CRA to do that project. So I'm not sure if it was CRA. The question is this: is that money CRA money, or was it transferred from the general fund to the CRA to pay for that project? Basically, we pay for the landscaping and improvements, and then the DOT reimburses us.
That's the correct process, but we have not received any money up to this point.
No, I understand that.
Right.
You won't until the project is
complete.
complete.
That is correct.
But where did the money come from? The general fund or the CRA? Because the agreement is between the DOT and the city, not the DOT and the CRA.
And Alan, I think you explained that you had, maybe you wanted to discuss that process with the CRA, with the discussion with FDOT regarding that very issue, when you were signing that. And I believe the contract was signed in March of this year.
Yeah, but I really honestly don't think that I can answer Councilwoman Dean's question. That is more of a financial-based question than what my answer would be. I know for a fact that the DOT, that question was asked of DOT, could we work the agreement, the JPA through the CRA, which DOT won't work with CRAs only because they don't know if the CRA is going to be there tomorrow, so they want to make sure that the entity they deal with has some legs. So that issue I cannot speak to. Brenda would be able to more clearly answer the question that you're asking.
That's a simple question. Is this $179,000 coming out of the CRA budget, or is it coming out of the city's budget?
I don't know.
Brenda?
Let's just find it. Thanks, Al.
The money is earmarked, or is being carried over from last year into this year, because it was earmarked in the prior year. It is coming out of the CRA, is being recorded as the revenue and the expense, dollar for dollar.
I don't think we can do that. I think it's a city expenditure because the agreement is with the DOT and the city. And again, what Mr. Merlucky talked about, there are two separate budgets. There's the city budget and the CRA budget. And that agreement is between the DOT and the city of Satellite Beach, not the DOT and the CRA. So it
CRA approved that budget with it in there.
Well, then there should be some kind of agreement in place.
Like Alan said, DOT will not sign an agreement with.
I'm fine. I'm
with
fine.
The CRA board.
I would prefer to ask these questions to the auditor because we're getting into a sticky situation again with some transfers and things that
would be
may not be appropriate. And I just want to put it on the
record.
record. That's one of the questions I'm going to ask. And also, I did send a list of questions to Mr. Merlucky, which he referenced today, which are very important. And I'm bringing some of these back up today. I think it's an issue with our budget if we approve it as is with that $179,000 in the CRA budget. The master A1A streetscape signal, the $75,000 that was given to us by Hunt Pinnacle. I'm just wondering how that got tied into the CRA reserves. It should, I feel it should have a line item so that that money is not spent on anything. I don't know if there's an agreement between Hunt Pinnacle and the city or the CRA. I know they wanted a mass arm. I know that Mr. Crotty and I guess CGA were going to meet with Hunt Pinnacle to discuss maybe doing some other project, but is it earmarked and dedicated by Hunt Pinnacle for a specific project in a specific area? So I'm afraid it could be spent on something that it hasn't.
Well, they had wanted a signal, and that's what they sent the money to us for, and that money was transferred to CRA, and if that's not what you were going to spend it for, it actually should be sent back to Hunt.
That's another issue I think that is very prudent and needs to be
Yes.
taken care of, because that $75,000 shows in the CRA budget.
And that's where the board had approved it to go into the reserves or reserved for future projects. But now, since this board had decided to not do that signal, now it should actually go back to Hunt.
And that money shows in our budget.
But that's actually for the CRA board, not here right now.
I do want to thank the department heads for all their hard work putting together this year's budget. I noticed there was like different formats and fonts and things, so you could tell who was doing what. And I really appreciate those who had shown where there were decreases, so it was easy to follow. So thank you for your hard work. You did a great job. I know that there's an assistant city clerk position online, and it's not budgeted.
I believe there are 3 part-time people if you look under...
Permanent part-time?
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be permanent part-time position?
Correct.
Because she is down one permanent part-time person right now?
So they're
There's one short right now, so we have 2 permanent part-time, and there is one budgeted, and it's in here and stated as such.
So how many part-time administrative folks do we have? And my concern is now you have a full-time employee who has benefits, so it's a lot different than having 3.
No. Who would that be?
The assistant city clerk.
No.
You're not hiring a full-time assistant?
Permanent part-time.
Permanent part-time.
Permanent part-time.
Does permanent part-time come with benefits, though? In other words, it's part of the permanent part-time package?
Because in the personnel policy, we have...
Patient sick, is that the difference?
Yes, very limited. Very limited.
Well, in the personnel policy handbook, we have a assistant city clerk position with a salary range.
That's correct, you do. You have, that actually is in there as a full-time city clerk. But as it is noted here on page 18, 3 permanent part-time administrative
But how can you
assistants.
switch out a full-time with benefits for part-time without benefits?
Budgeted in here is 3 permanent
Permanent
part-time,
part-time.
which Lenore figures that she can utilize in that capacity.
I just wanted to bring that up for everybody to be aware of. One of the big issues I am concerned about, we talked extensively when we went line by line about the capital asset fund and what a capital asset is. Again, that's a question I'd like to ask the auditors, and Mr. Malucki was aware of that question. We've talked about taking the $6,000 from the departments and keeping it in the capital asset fund to buy the RMS system or a system that we really need, rather than spread that money throughout the department. And I was wondering why that wasn't done and why it remained the same.
Excuse me?
At the meeting when we went line by line, I think we all thought it was an excellent idea to take I think it's $4,000 in most of the departments. Police had $1,200. Fire, building and zoning had $600, public works $600, rec department $600. That came out of the capital asset fund, and I was concerned about that because the capital asset is valued at $3,000 or more.
It was the transfer in from capital asset that you did not want, and that was eliminated.
You'll have to explain that. I'm not seeing what you're saying.
The transfer in from capital asset is what you did not want to occur in order to pay for those items. We reduced that item, the transfer in, and we were able to accommodate it in other areas. I don't have the actual pluses and minuses in my worksheet that was able to pay for that. There was a lot of changes that evening. But we eliminated that transfer in. We reduced some other costs. Oh, we took part of the money from Building and Zoning's planner, and that helped pay for the capital asset items. Because you said that you did not want to pay for the computers out of capital assets. Even though
I don't see where now there's money in the capital, there's nothing left in the capital asset fund. Where did the,
well, we eliminated also the strategic plan from capital assets, and we eliminated the transfer from capital assets into general government to pay for those capital assets, which were the computers that KPEG recommended, because you didn't feel they were capital items. And I also wanted to point out, weeks or also like a month or so ago, this board had recommended transferring money from capital to pay for the Beachcaster. Now, the Beachcaster is not a capital item, but yet this board had agreed to that.
This board, or was it the previous board?
This board agreed to transfer that same money, but yet that's not a capital item. But yet these departments have to suffer not getting the full capital items that they requested because this council did not want to transfer that money that was needed to pay for their capital items.
That's not true at all, Brenda.
That they did not requested through me with their initial budget, but KPEG recommended that they needed for their computers because council did not feel that their capital items needed to transfer that money out of capital funds to come into general fund was a capital item. So I eliminated that money. But yet the Beachcaster funding coming from capital was. Now, I don't understand how that is a capital item, but capital equipment of computers is.
Let's go back to the funding of the Beachcaster. When was the first, I'm at the point where it's just, I'm not getting I'm just trying to understand. The Beachcaster was funded. It was a recommendation of Mr. Crotty to transfer that money.
Oh, no.
The $2,000 for the original Beachcaster.
No, Mr. Crotty wasn't here.
Yes, he was. When the original four-page Beachcaster went out in January, he was here.
No.
Yes, he was.
I was just
not the present Beachcaster, but the first one that came out probably around March. I think we allocated money for that, and then we allocated money for this one.
Well, this one right now, to transfer the funds.
Which is the one that's coming.
Yes, the ones that were coming out.
And I think
it's
coming out to say that this board is most of this board's first time through the budget process.
Yes.
And I think it's really unwarranted to say,
no,
when we're advised by our city manager that money can come out of the capital asset, we just said, yes, this is my first time through a budget hearing, and I went line by line. I'm reading the data you gave me, and a capital asset most certainly is an item valued over $3,000. Had I been through a budget process before, and he had mentioned that, I probably would have disagreed with him. I'm not penalizing the department heads at all, or the departments over the computer issue. What we talked about was keeping it in the capital asset fund in reserve so that we can buy the RMS system next year instead of a computer here and a computer here and a computer here and a computer there. Or if you decide you need some kind of...
In the original documents that established that fund, they even had it down to $500 for equipment. It was any equipment that would, to pay for computers or any equipment. It is fixed assets, any type of computers or equipment. It is coming back to the general fund to pay for computers and equipment that was recommended by KPEG. So that is capital assets. So that's why we were transferring those funds back to general fund from capital. The only thing that is to be recorded in the capital assets fund are items that are over $3,000 in value with a life expectancy of 1 year or more. That is why it's recorded in that particular fund. But any capital assets that are lower in value of $3,000 ought to be recorded in the general fund by department. So you can have a historical value and data to say safety or public works, their true cost from year to year is X dollars for that whole department, year to year. That's why those particular costs are recorded in that department.
Right. Well, this is a question that I ran through Mr. Malucki, and I would like the auditors to clarify what can be expended out of the capital asset fund and what the value is.
Okay.
And I have that concern, and I'm just trying to discuss it, that's all.
Okay, well, I just wanted to clarify that I was just taken back by,
Brenda,
when people say that, certain things are capital assets, and then when I know that they're not, and then it's just very frustrating,
I have a question.
You do?
Where did the fund balance go?
I didn't know. I'm sorry.
On page 81, the 34,582, that's a 34,682.
Yes, that reduced on the revenue side.
Because it went from the July budget to zero.
And
to 81 on.
Okay. Under what?
Okay, if you go to
other reserve,
if you go to page 81 on the capital assets
fund.
Yes, on page 81, there was an amount on the capital assets fund balance reserves. I was using part of the reserves fund to help pay for the police vehicles and other items. Now that is reduced to zero, and we are now adding 2,000. If you go to page 87, by eliminating those other two items that I just said, we're now adding $2,168 to reserves, capital asset reserves. You see that?
And I think you got. I have all three budgets here, and it's very frustrating when these items, these line items, they're here and then they're gone. So.
And I could change it for any way that the council would like it for next year. I mean, that's easy to do.
But I do hope that the process is different next year, where we go line by line, department by department, and I have concerns. We're all aware of the CRA transfers that took place, and now with the 175, 185, and then capital asset money going here and stormwater money going there, and we need to be very, very careful what we're doing when we adopt a budget.
Thank you. Greg, do you have any comments? We're still at the 6A public hearing?
No.
I just have one. It's really simple. I have 2 page 77s, and one is the CRA with the sinking fund of 412. I just want to make sure that
I had asked for.
Does anyone else have that?
Yeah,
if we do, I don't want to approve this budget.
I asked for clarification and a page check on page 71 to 81, and I didn't get a response.
Now,
You have 2 pages.
71 and 79.
He doesn't have 277.
No,
I just want to make sure that.
yeah.
You were special.
Well, thank
No, I
you,
have it
thank
as
you.
well.
But a $500,000 sinking fund, we don't have that, right? It's the $87,017
Correct.
in the sinking fund?
That is correct.
I just want to make sure that no one, that when we approve this, we don't approve it with that in there.
My budget also has those additional pages. I have 2 budgets for CRA, community redevelopment, in there,
I
page
think
71 to 77.
The $412,000 sinking fund is out.
Correct. The
Sinking fund is 87.
right, the board recommended 87,017.
Okay, just want to make sure.
That's correct.
Okay.
But I also want to make that very clear, because on the other 77, it has the the opposite. It has,
You have two 77s?
yeah, we have two
I had the
budgets.
old one.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Both budgets are in here.
I don't.
You don't? I do.
Oh,
Do you?
Yes, you are.
yes, sir. No, he does not.
Oh, okay, I do.
Go ahead.
I appreciate all the department heads and the interim city manager, and the council here. I know that there's 3 council members here. This is the first time through the budget process. And Ms. Anderson coming in the middle of all this, it's a big effort, and I think we've moved in the right direction. Brenda, just with some of the things you mentioned about the transferring some monies out and things, is there the ability through the year that we can look at these again and maybe move some here and there? Is that, we're not locked into this right through the whole fiscal year, are we?
No, we make budget amendments all the time.
Okay.
You know, and that has to come to council, you know, to make the budget changes. You know, so, yeah.
Just a quick question. If there is something in here that's questionable now, do we hold up this budget process until we answer it, or is it something we can fix after we approve it?
You could fix it. What do you need to make changes?
No, I'm not. I'm just curious if there's
Okay.
anything that was.
Oh, my God. Don't
You
do
have
that.
an amendment process, right? Is that
Yes.
quarterly?
Yes.
Okay.
Depends. That's an open-ended question, though, because it depends what it is.
Yes, that's right.
No, I don't have any.
Okay, but you have a quarterly.
Okay.
Yes, quarterly budget amendments.
Great. I'd like to open up the budget for fiscal year 2012, 2013. This is the public hearing for public comment. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and resident or non-resident, and we'll have residents first.
Kathleen Arcarola, 24-year resident. Oh, my God. I don't even know what to say at this point, but I would like to caution council members, as you have cautioned us in the seats behind us, to remain professional, not condescending or sarcastic toward each other or toward city or staff. I know we've had some issues in the past, and it's in the past, and we're moving forward. But to attack each other or attack staff, or just not, it's not going to get us anywhere. And we as citizens hearing it, it just recreates this rift. So please compose yourselves and be professional to each other as you ask of us. And I just wanted to say thank you for everybody and their hard work up until this point. I mean, I know it was a little messy in the past, and it was a municipality-run thing, which is why I also think it's good to include some private people, private CEOs or executive people in our new city manager spot. Unfortunately, it was voted down. So please control your tone of voice and be good to each other.
Thank you for that comment.
Ron?
Good evening, everyone. Ron Jagutis, Satellite Beach resident. Just for clarification here, we're only commenting on Part A of this topic, and we will have a chance to comment on B and C.
I'm going to let you.
Okay. All right. I know everyone's worked kind of hard on this budget, and this budget process started way back in probably April, started with KPEG. I do take issue with us not having any money set aside for the police department and their computer issues. I did look at the $34,000 coming through there, and it's not there now. It's late in the game. But again, for the record, we have been working for this issue for a long time, knowing that we're coming into statutory issues with the state of Florida, and I too made an assumption that we would have some set aside. We don't have that now. I hope through the amending process we will have that some way, shape, or form. Next, on page 51 of the budget document for interfund transfers, and this is house cleaning a little bit. I don't know whether it matters right now, but there's no reflection of the transfer to the general fund for the stormwater fund for the salaries and wages in public works, $98,000. And that's probably just, could be an oversight versus the initial on the first few pages where it shows the interfund transfer amounts. I'm going to the summary documents right now. Almost there. I believe it's services, stormwater. Stormwater fund is page 4, but that's capital assets. On my copy here, I don't show one of those pages here, and that could be a miss on the internet, but I don't have that page. It's one of the first 4 pages for 5-6 pages for intergovernmental funds. Are you looking at it?
Yes, I am.
Do you see the $98,000 there being transferred? That's not on page 51.
Okay.
When you're on page 51,
Yeah.
you're looking at expenses.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to look at the revenue side. It's on the revenue side in the general fund.
Okay, it's on the revenue side of the general fund. So all as you're reflecting on that page, intergovernmental transfers are the expenditures only, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So you go to the revenue side, you'll find it.
Thank you. Other public comment on the public hearing of the budget?
On page 12, Ron.
Don McClendon, resident. Little did I know when I stood before this council at a budget workshop or last council meeting, I don't remember, but I brought up the topic of under pensions of others being life insurance, medical, eyeglasses, and dental. Well, as Mr. McLucky pointed out, there's a whole lot of others that were not being properly accounted for and funds. I'm glad that you folks have put your nose to the grindstone and made that transparent, because that was definitely an opaque curtain that nobody could understand. The other topic, I just wanted to thank this council for the work they've done, but even more so, even. There's a nice crowd here tonight, again, and we are seeing more citizen involvement, which is important as the city tries to heal itself, and our major wound is financial right now. There's a lot of bleeding going on. What I'd like to encourage, I heard somebody say, well, yes, that's the budget, but we can transfer funds from there to somewhere else. I would suggest that if you have a budget, you live within your budget, and don't think that if I don't use my budget, I won't get the same thing next year. How about if you don't use your whole budget, don't use it, and save the citizens a few bucks here and there. Now, as far as Mr. McLucky mentioned 3 phases of a pension plan. One is underfunded, one is minimal funding, and one is overfunding. Underfunded means by law you have to make contributions, as he pointed out. Adequate funding or minimum funding would mean, okay, your assumptions are okay, your contribution rates are adequate to get this fund to where it needs to go to satisfy the city's obligations to its pensioners. Overfunded, it's against the law which I wish we were in that place. It's against the law, federal law, to fund that pension. Nevertheless, that's going to be the really big elephant in the room here soon, and it has to be dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment on the public hearing of the budget? Okay, 6A is complete. Now we'll formally have 6B, which is ordinance number 1060, and then ordinance numbers 1061, which is C. So I'll get a chance to get to it. It's agenda items 6B.
Are we going to do them all in one lump?
No, we're going to do
Okay.
B, and then we'll discuss it.
Okay.
Then we'll do C. Jim, sorry. All right, ordinance number 1060, Mr. Beadle.
Ordinance number 1060, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, decreasing the millage rate 0.5% under the aggregate rollback rate, establishing the FY 2012-2013 operating millage rate, providing an effective date. This is the second reading of ordinance number 1060.
Thank you. Ann? Anything?
No, nothing to add.
All right, council comments, Greg?
Nothing.
Anybody? I'd like to open this agenda item 6B for public comment of establishing the millage rate for 2012-2013.
Stay up here. I'm so sorry. Kathy Arcarilla is down again. I think it's great. I know a lot of people want to see us save taxes, this and that, but since we're so far in the hole, you can keep my money and use it toward the budget and what you have to get back on your feet. I don't want it. I don't need it. I know a lot of people want that, but I just can't fathom how we're rolling back the tax rate and we're so far in the hole. I don't quite get it, but appreciate the effort. You can keep mine.
All right, let me bring it back to the council for a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed FY 2012-2013 annual budget and adoption of ordinance number 1060 on second reading.
Second. I have a motion by Vice Mayor Rhodes, second by Councilman French. Any discussion? Lenore?
Councilman Billman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dean?
Yes.
Councilman French?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhodes?
Yes.
Mayor Ferrante?
Yes, and the motion passes unanimously. And Mr. Beadle, ordinance number 1061.
Ordinance number 1061, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, adopting the FY 2012-2013 budget, providing an effective date. It's the second reading of ordinance number 1061.
Thank you. Ann?
Nothing to add.
Thank you. Any council comments?
I do. On Section 5, the City Council of the City of Satellite Beach does hereby adopt the Community Redevelopment Agency Fund budget for fiscal year 2012-13. We cannot adopt their budget. The CRA adopts their own budget, and we did that last week. That needs to be taken out of the ordinance. And also, too, for clarity purposes, we agreed at the CRA meeting to separate the budgets, so we need to make a motion as City Council to separate those two budgets.
I didn't, okay, I didn't think we were going to make a motion to do that.
We need to do it
September.
before the...
I don't think we can.
I think you need to hear
It's
from
just
Brenda.
about separating the budget, that's all. It has nothing to do with anything else.
Okay, Brenda, sorry.
Okay, as was stated on the 13th, this is just a formality for trim purposes, according to DOR. DOR said that we have to go through these two hearings since a long drawn-out thing. Next year, there will be two separate budgets. But since we already started the trim process, we have to finish it. This is the second hearing. Yes, the CRA board has done approved their budget, which is incorporated in the city's budget, but because DOR said that we have to incorporate it in the taxing authority's budget, it must be in there for trim purposes, which is DOR. And DOR said if we do not do this, they will withhold our property taxes, period. They have the ultimate authority. And I've already discussed this with Jeff. So if you do not want to include that, we don't have to receive our tax money. It's up to you.
So you're saying, do you have section 5 in front of you
Section 5?
of ordinance 1061?
Your packet.
Oh.
Brenda, if you could just look at section 5, and I think that's what you just said, that needs to be in there this year. Ordinance 1061, section 5.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Next year, it may. It's correct.
It will be separate, yes.
Okay, thank you. Other comments on the ordinance? Okay, I'd like to open it, agenda item 6C, the adoption of the budget for public comment.
Ron Jagutis, resident, Satellite Beach. In the CRA, this is the second reading, apparently, of the ordinance, and I attended the CRA board meeting last week, and there was discussion to separate it out. And then there was discussion on the other direction. My question now is, since this has to be approved, where are the minutes for the CRA board meeting provided to City Council addressing the issue that they've approved the budget? They're not posted on the website, they're not approved. And then I'm going to ask, and I don't know the answer right now, shouldn't we approve all the prior meeting minutes prior to approving ordinances going forward? Shouldn't we have at least the workshop minutes approved for all the budget hearings? Just a question. And then ordinance number 1049 from last year, I had asked that, actually the first part of this year, relation to the CRA. Since CRA is going to be approved tonight, I questioned whether the master comprehensive plan that was submitted to the state included certain budget items for the CRA. And that ordinance 1049 was passed last year. And I do not know at this point whether the numbers were followed through as to what's in the reserves now with the CRA, because there were designated funds to be used for the A1A project related to FDOT in the comprehensive plan. I do not have that information. So let's pass it, and I guess we're going to have to amend it and look at it further.
Other public comment? Thanks, Ron. Brenda, did you want to say something? Okay, thank you. All right, let me bring it back to the council for a motion, please.
It was a pretty good point about approving the minutes. I don't know that we've approved the minutes from the first reading, have we? Is that it, Mr. Beadle? Is that it's not an issue? Oh, okay.
I'm looking at attorney.
Good.
I think more importantly, does it reflect what we discussed 2 weeks ago? And that would be, I think, the minutes reflect what we said. Does this budget reflect what we want and what we have asked the city manager to provide us? I think that would be, because I think what you're doing is backdooring it, but you are approving the minutes by agreeing to the CRA budget or the other budgets as we ask.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 1061, adopting the FY 2012-2013 budget on the second reading.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman French, second by Vice Mayor Rhodes for ordinance 1061. Lenore?
Councilman Billman?
Yes.
Councilman Medina?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhodes?
Yes.
Councilman French?
Yes.
Mayor Coffey?
I'm going to say yes, and I'm just going to say, Ann, 90 days in the job, terrific job.
Thank you.
I mean,
I appreciate it.
and I am very appreciative of the entire staff, citizens, and I know that somebody's going to mention the article that was in the paper on Sunday,
It was a great article.
but if you haven't read it, Matt Reed's article, which sometimes you don't know, well, Lloyd's was in Saturday, but I'm sorry, you got Trump. It was terrific, and I got to tell you, he really patted each one of you on the back. I didn't see the word council in there that much, but I saw.
It said management in there.
I saw
read that.
management. I know. I didn't see council. I did call him. I did thank him, but he said you were the reason that happened. And I'm expecting to go TDY to Washington, D.C.
Show them how it's done, Mr. Mayor.
No, I don't mean permanently. I mean just he said go and discuss it with them and show them what to do. And I'd like to thank each members of the council. I'd like to thank each members of the staff. It was grueling
and the cake.
tough. But rollback minus 0.5 is unheard of in the Space Coast League of Cities. There's nothing else you can say. I mean, you can't say anything else. It's just, wow.
I would like to comment too. We equated it to the millage didn't go up overnight, so it's not going to come down overnight. We're just going to have to keep chiseling away at it. And with that said, whatever has been done in the past has been done in the past, but it's our responsibility as your representatives to move forward and to do it correctly.
Great.
Always. And that's all.
Great. Thank you. And I think 90 days is.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. All right. Very important matter.
Oh, yes.
Agenda item number 7, City Council casual attire. Mr. Billman, what do you have on there? I want to know. Do you have on your suit?
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, didn't you see? That's why I turned off the video.
I didn't hear that. Go ahead. What do you want to do?
I would like to make a motion that we amend the city council policy to allow casual dress all year round. We're a beach community. It's warm most of the year, and I think except for special occasions when we're going to be giving out an award or some such thing, we can do the suit thing. But I just wanted to bring that up and see what people thought. But that's what I'd like to. That's what I'd like to do.
Okay.
Are you recommending business casual attire?
I'm recommending our shirts, our city shirts, and nice slacks.
Here's Greg, if I can weigh in, I was thinking fall and winter, jacket, no tie, spring and summer, polo shirts, like our city shirts, just a jacket, no tie for the fall and the winter. That's almost business. But what do you?
Well, I think that, we're up here on a dais and we are representing the community, and there's a certain way that you should appear. I think it's fine the way it is with the workshops and going casual, but if you guys don't want to wear ties in the winter, I'm down with that. That's a good compromise.
What do you think?
Squeeze the, we used to go from Labor Day to something, and we squeezed it a little bit. We could go daylight savings. We can go October, we squeeze another 8 months of casual and 4 months of formal or semi-formal.
Whatever you want to do. We have a motion. Do you want to amend your motion?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. It doesn't really matter. I was just bringing it up as I mean, we sit in these council meetings for 4 or 5 hours at a time. I would really like to be a little bit more comfortable than being choked.
I understand. All right.
There you go.
Do I have a second? Greg made a motion to be casual year-round. Is there a second? Okay, that does not pass. Can I have another motion?
I'm
We
going
gotta get through this.
Leave it the way it is.
Go ahead. Make another motion.
I'd like to make a motion for business casual for whatever you said, fall and winter.
And I second that. I second it.
Okay, that's it. Business casual, which is a jacket, no tie, probably need a shirt, and
No tie?
Didn't say that.
well, I don't want to say this out of school. Catino doesn't wear socks, so socks in the winter. Okay. All right. So I have a motion and a second for the fall and winter to be business casual and to be in shirts, like our city shirts for the other two seasons. Okay, Lenore?
Councilman Dean?
No. I like it the way it is.
Vice Mayor Rose?
Yes. I don't think, it's just a council comment. It's just a council procedure.
Councilman French?
Yes.
Councilman Billman?
Yes.
He said yes.
Mayor Bronte?
Okay, yes. Okay, citizen recognition, introduction to guests. Is anybody here that has never been to a council meeting before? That's not going to work, Dave. Okay, citizens' comments. Name and address. You have 5 minutes. Please address all comments to me. Kathleen, you were first.
Just real quickly, I spent about a day,
Only because it goes in the minutes. Name?
Kathleen Arcarola, 24-year resident, about the dog park and the skate park. I think last time I looked at the budget combined, it was about $14,000 for various things to run those. And I did get with Miss Ann, and I've also talked to Greg and Lloyd about it. Scott and I previously talked about open use of dog and skate parks in California and such. Anyhow, I did a bunch of research. I gave it to the city, gave it to some of the council. We are the only dog and skate park in all of Brevard County that is staffed. I talked to the city of Titusville, Port St. John, Cocoa Beach, Palm Bay. There's currently, if my research is correct from who I spoke with, 6 dog parks and 4 skate parks, of which one of those skate parks is privately run through the Palm Bay Community Center, and they have their own fees, and they're not associated with the city budget. So I don't know why on earth we are still manning our skate park and our dog parks when the rest of the county has them operating on their own at risk, if you will. And then they either close them at dark or they shut the lights off, but they're not manned at all. In fact, Cocoa Beach had theirs manned from 06 to 08, and they ran out of money, and it's been unmanned ever since. So I gave Ann a copy of all the research and everything else, and she turned it over to Carrie, and she might be waiting for an answer by as well and waiting for an answer. And then I also asked Mr. French to go ahead and step in and in my behalf and come to some kind of conclusion on this, because we could save a lot of money. We don't need to have a babysitting service necessarily at the skate park if it's working fine at the others throughout the county. And also for the dogs, if you don't like it, don't take your dog there. We spent a lot of money on doggy bags, but I had recommended that we, use our Publix grocery bags and put it in a big 55-gallon drum out upside down with the hole in it. People, nobody that has a dog doesn't have a bag on their person or in their car or in their house or somewhere. It's just, we just carry them all the time because you never know. So I really want to see this pushed through as soon as possible. I was hoping it would get on this budget, but I guess it's a little short, even though I've been squawking about it for 6 months. But I really hope that you guys will take a look at it, and the city manager and Ms. Strom, and come to some, cutbacks, because I think if it's working everywhere else in the county, we have the oldest skate and dog park, and we're still manning and staffing it, and nobody else is. And one other quick thing, I talked about this before. I've actually voted for all of you at one point in time. But again, I just wanted to say that I appreciate a level of thoroughness and attention to detail, but if you can't remain civil and emotionless behind this barrier, then maybe you should step down, and we got to stop these condescending tones to other council and staffers. It's poor business. Thank you all for your help, and especially, and Ms. Brenda for the finance.
May I just say, Kathleen, that we did reduce the poopy bags in half from, what was it, 2,000 whatever to 1,000. So that was a score on that one.
I don't think we need them around the walk park. I mean, in the dog park, but, if it gets to the point where people aren't behaving, then we just, But I am all for the skate park and the dog park, but I think the fees that we pay are way too much, and I don't think that they need to be staffed, and I would like that looked into. And I think I've given you guys all the research that you will need to check up on, so I'm hoping you and Carrie can, look into that a little bit further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jagutis, I think a lot of the things you mentioned, Ron, are on the radar for next year. I know that they are. Okay, Ron Jagutis? Thank you, sir. Mr. Mulcahy? Did I say that right? Thank you.
Sir. Now, my concerns generally are with the management and what I see going on.
Sir, name and
Patrick
only
Mulcahy.
because we
Okay, I thought you called me. I thought
transposed.
we were good. Okay, Patrick Mulcahy, Satellite Beach.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, my concerns are with the management. I have personal issues. I would like to know how this city council, with some of the problems I'm dealing with my home, I wish the police chief hadn't left, or Mr. Stone, the building official. When I was at the last council meeting, I heard a gentleman get up, and he made some pretty outrageous accusations about being arrested, retaliation, smear, blah, blah, blah. I sent him a letter, and I sent it to our city manager, who, by the way, thank you, did a heck of a job. She got me a response. Now, obviously, I'm here this evening. I don't agree with the response. Now, the things that happened with the contractor are criminal. The police chief refuses to do anything. And along with Mr. Stone has misrepresented the facts. He said the state attorney is dealing with this now. I spoke to the assistant state attorney from this area, and he said, no, the police forwarded it. Well, they don't have a report. So I don't know how you would like to deal with those personal issues.
Well, sir, I will say that you have done everything right, because what we do here is if you have an issue with somebody that works for the city, we ask that you bring it to the city manager first, and then if it's not reserved, you bring it to us, and you have brought it to the city manager first. Some people just come up and say, this person didn't do anything. I'm not sure, are you saying that the city manager did not satisfactorily answer?
No, I'll tell you she did a heck of a job. She met with me during all of this budgeting and everything else. She told me to write down my concerns, submit them to her. She forwarded them on to Mr. Stone, who in turn responded. And then she got the response to me.
Andy, can you weigh in?
Well, there's been quite a bit of involvement at the county level too, with regarding the licensing issues there, and there's a lot of information that I have collected. I have it in a file in my office. So if we need to revisit this, if you still, not been resolved, I don't know what the state issue is, but let's discuss this. Why don't you? Can you do this? Can you phone me tomorrow or come in and see me?
I absolutely can.
Why don't we do that?
Now, here's one of my main concerns, The lady that spoke on the budget, I understand you all worked hard, and I see a lot of, unfortunately for me, the Tea Party mentality. The gentleman standing at this door right here, it is not his pension that is harming this city or any of the other cities. When I heard the first man, when he gave his report on the budgets, sitting back there, when I hear red flag, red flag, red flag, and this nice lady over here, well, you know, I have this report, and I explained this, we can't do this, this is what this money is allocated for. That is incompetence. That is poor management. That's what that is. And if we're having issues, that's the issues that we're having. Now, we have the attorney here this evening. Now, there are certain levels of fiduciary responsibilities, isn't there? And at what point in time, there was a comment made, has this been forwarded to the state? If it's not, why not? Why not?
I would just tell you, sir, and I know you just started to come to the meetings, we did have a full-blown forensic audit at the beginning of this year by Mr. McLucky with 12 recommendations. They are in the minutes. No smoking guns, but there were 12 recommendations that he came up with. So I would recommend, I can't remember the month, probably February, but the council did recommend a forensic audit, which is a little bit deeper than just working with your auditors, and that was Mr. McLucky. And then when the 175, 185 money came up, we also asked Mr. McLucky to look into that. So I would say if you could read the forensic audit, it may help a little bit, because like I say, there were no, as he put it, his words, smoking guns.
As you're doing these reviews, are you giving it the full once-over? I made my comment, my first meeting was the last meeting. You have an excellent city staff. They are self-motivated, and when I hear comparisons between our city workers and other city workers, you're not comparing apples to apples. The city workers here are doing a fine job. So perhaps maybe we may be a bit on the top-heavy side. This is a very small city, and maybe the whole situation needs to be looked at.
Thank you, sir.
Now, I will call you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kingston? No, sir, I don't have your name on the list. Stephen Kingston.
I think he left.
Okay. All right, let's go back to the agenda. City council comments. Greg, any comments?
No, actually I do. I agree with Councilwoman Dean. I didn't have my package today from Mr. Malucki, but it sounds like he had a list of 7 or 8 questions. Is that right?
I think that Cheryl asked him questions and he answered them, but
He didn't answer them.
he didn't answer them. We want to save them for Carl's Riggins. Who's our?
Well, my point was to be, he made a point a couple of times about asking our outside auditors certain questions, and he intimated that he had those questions and they were on those papers that he handed you. Again, I haven't been able to see them, but if they exist, I agree with Councilwoman Dean, and I think we need to have our outside auditors come in and we need to ask them Mr. Malucki's questions.
We're going to look at the schedule for the 3rd. Hopefully we can move something from the 3rd. It looks pretty heavy right now, as the city manager has told me, but maybe we can move something from the 3rd to the 17th and bring them in.
Okay, that would be fine. I would also like to have somebody answer the question why. Like Mr. Malucki said, he couldn't tell you why. He could just tell you what. But the question regarding the 175, 185 funds not being accounted for correctly still begs the question.
Okay.
Question why, and I would like that question answered by somebody.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Am I going to get an opportunity to make a statement?
Sir, Mr. Hinton, sir, I'm sorry. I do not have you on the sign-in sheet, the citizen comment sheet. I cannot do that, sir. I am sorry. I would love to. I enjoy hearing from you. But I do have some rules that I am going by, sir. I'm sorry, and I apologize. Council comments.
I went to the Schechter Community Center last night, sat down with the soccer board there, the city soccer board, and listened to some of the things that they were doing. And one of the things that came up was, I guess they had asked about lighting at the soccer field by the library. Did that come up ever in discussions?
I think lighting is, if Alan were here, I just think it's very expensive.
One of the recommendations that I said, as I said, obviously we're in a fairly austere budget environment, but one of the things that they might consider would be teaming with somebody like Lighting Science, and perhaps coming up with a plan to, again, team with someone like Lighting Science and perhaps, find a way to fund the lighting through relationships with business activities.
Now, this was not the rec board. This was just a soccer.
No, this is just a soccer
guys.
Right. And so there was a general thought among them that there was an imaginary line or priority list of things that the city was going to fund, and they were somewhere in that process. Are you aware of anything?
I'm aware of cutting the grass and sprinkling the field. I mean, if Kerry were here, we could ask her, but I don't think that there's anything much more than that. We're not building a clubhouse. They were going to build a clubhouse for the football field, and I think the soccer fields could use the clubhouse, but I don't think that there's, I'm sorry, I'm not talking into the microphone, John. I'm sorry. But I don't think that there's anything else on the horizon. We cannot even fix a light on the tennis court right now. I mean, I don't say that badly, but because you got to get the
high lift,
the high lift, and it's very expensive to do that.
So if I can help with this, actually the South Beach Seahawks are out of a field. We don't have a field to play on in Satellite Beach. The library field is too short. That's a 300-yard field. And we are working with Lighting Science.
Okay, good.
And it's interesting because the actual league or whoever's using the lights will be able to swipe them with a card and be billed directly for the use of the lighting.
Where are those lights going to be?
They're not in existence yet, but we're looking hopefully to expand the library field and also put in lighting. And lighting, we're working with Lighting Science.
Did you, by any chance, when you're working with Lighting Science, is there a way? I know it's just called the library field right now.
Yeah, there's I think 4 soccer fields and 1 football field.
It occurs to me that that's maybe something along the lines where you have a Lighting Science field or something like that where they get some kind of.
I think you should discuss advertising the field that people could pay, for sponsorship. I don't think you're going to be the TD Arena, but
no, perhaps not.
But Lighting Science field would be good.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank you.
Am I next?
Yes.
Yep. Well, the South Beach Seahawks are playing finally at home here, but they will be playing at Satellite High because we don't have a field big enough to accommodate the Seahawks. So football all day. If you want to come, my kid plays at 3. And also, too, the gracious folks of Satellite Beach have donated enough money to pay for the Michael P. Crowdy Park sign. They actually contributed $3,200, and then we needed an additional $200 for the permit. So we've also obtained that, and I want to thank Mary Bolin Lewis, Robin Bessie Bracewell, Lynn Cavanaugh, Mike and Joanne Chase, Patricia Crotty, Gabe and Sandy Feint, Suzanne Higginson, Kevin and Suzanne McEwen, Quentin Hampton, Fred and Barbara Rudge, David and Ruth Schechner, Jim Beadle, Lee and Tony Denninger, Pat Utek, Mike and Cheryl Deenan, John and Sadie Baker, Dee Anderson, Clara Roy, Mary Herzig, the Klingon Hesses, the Dillons, the Elmers, Dale Abrams, Ron Javirtis, Doris Sachs, and Frank Catino. So thank you, everybody, for your contribution.
Thank you. Sounds like the who's who of Satellite Beach. So it is. Thank you for that. And thank you, everyone. I'm sure the sign will look beautiful.
Don't have much. There's a beach cleanup at the beach Saturday. I don't know if it's annual or quarterly or something.
Okay.
And I've always been wanting to push recycling, and we got some last year at some of the major ball fields, the Little League fields where my kids play, Olson and Hedgecock. And I know that I think Anglers for Conservation, Rodney Smith and his fishermen guys have one at the soon-to-be Mike Crotty Park, Sunrise Park. There's a wire basket, and I'd like to see, moving forward, since we've got through this tough budget process time here, if we could put that on a future agenda to see about adding some recycling bins to the wire baskets, whatever it takes, and with the volunteer efforts if that's needed, rather than taxing the Public Works resources on that. So that's all I got.
Thank you. I attended a planning and zoning meeting Monday night. Signs will be coming back, I think, on October 3rd for a moratorium, so we'll be working on that. And then the last thing, on September 10th, Satellite Beach sponsored the Space Coast League of Cities dinner. And I just have to thank Lenore, Alexa, for the outstanding job. The first time we changed the venue, the meal, terrific speaker, great jokes. It was just a really, it was just great. Lenore, personally, and from the city, thank you so much. All right, City Attorney, Mr. Beadle.
The only item I have is the proposed letter to JLAC to enclose the agreement between the city and the city CRA. I had drafted a proposed letter and sent it to Ann for Ann and staff to review. There was only one minor revision to the proposed letter, which I didn't have any problem with. I would just strike the word have before the one little I at the beginning of the second paragraph, but other than that, that's...
Okay, just determined?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Billman? Greg? Any comments on the letter going to the JLAC? Okay. Lloyd?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm good with it.
You guys got anything?
I'm just wondering on the third, 1, 2, 3, after when we said the police transfers would not be subject to payment, do we want to reference because they were noted in the CRA plan, the rationale for why?
That was the thing that was removed from the proposed letter, and it doesn't matter one way or the other. If council wants to put that back in there,
I think we should.
Was that at the last?
It was right. What do you mean put it in? It is in, Jim.
No. What Cheryl's referring to is at the end of this 1, 2, 3rd paragraph, the sentence would not be subject to payment, but there was additional language in there as to why, because it was referenced in the CRA. It was generally referenced in the CRA plan.
And we were explaining why we went forward from the Daytona Beach audit to pay for fire and the electricity, and our rationale for not paying the police back was because it was referenced in the existing adopted CRA plan, and I think that's very important.
So you want to put that back in?
Yes.
6 or 7 words?
It's just what I had before. It's basically.
Because it was, I'll just put the language back in that I originally put in there, but basically what it said was because it was generally referenced in the CRA plan.
Yeah. Okay, I think that makes sense.
And you're going to copy the agreement and send it. Was the agreement executed?
I don't know.
No.
Did the CRA sign it? I don't know.
No.
Council
This was for approval tonight to make sure that this was proper.
That we're okay on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, can I have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the letter with the original language that Jim had drafted regarding the CRA plan.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Dean, and second by Vice Mayor Rhodes. Lenore?
Councilman Billman?
Yes.
Councilman French?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhodes?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dean?
Yes.
Mayor Plummer?
Yes, Jim, thanks. Nice letter. City Manager, Ann?
Yes, city manager report. Auditor screening committee, that committee is going to, we're thinking of convening in mid to late October for its organizational meeting, and that's going to be beginning the process of selecting a new auditing firm. The Public Works Cassia Phase 3 program received $100K from Brevard County. That has been deposited. Public Works DRS Community Center, the city awarded Cleaning Pro the bid for custodial cleaning services in the amount of $30,000. That came in lower. We just hope that that the job will be done. It came in actually significantly lower than they thought. So.
Is it an annual contract?
Yes, it is.
Annual. Thank you.
Correct. The JPA is going to start, that's the landscaping along State Road 513. That's going to start scheduled for next week. I was asked to be a part of Brevard Workforce's, they have a biz launch program, and it's an entrepreneurial program, and they host 65 to 70 individuals every week in Rockledge who are looking to become entrepreneurs. They have an entirely new program. In fact, that was what was discussed at the Florida League of Cities, and is also being discussed at the national level, because there aren't as many jobs now that can be filled with companies, so they're encouraging individuals existing companies to act as mentors and to help others learn the business and become entrepreneurs. They know that I've had business experience, and they are looking forward to some ideas and thoughts on this initiative, so I'll probably be involved with that. And again, at the national level, for the League of Cities, are also supporting startup entrepreneurs and connecting workforce and economic development. So it's a good thing as far as that's concerned. December 1st is the first Ocean, Beach, and Reef Festival, and what has been asked by Carrie Stoms and the individuals putting this on is will the city CRA give permission for parking at Peg Legs during that event? I know Enigma is going to open their area for parking as well. So would they give permission to actually be on that site to park?
You'll have to put that on as a CRA item, but I don't know how they're going to get around. There's no trespassing signs there.
Well, those can be covered.
No, they're in the middle of the lot.
We'll cover them up. All right. And I think that's it.
Can you please tell me what's open to the public for fire union negotiations?
Oh, yes, that is, I'm glad you mentioned that. Negotiations for fire department with the team of Wayne Helsby, Brenda Raver, and Ann Samuelson. That is going, the first negotiation session is going to be this Tuesday at 10 o'clock, and it is held here, and it is open. It's public,
open.
Absolutely.
What time you have?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock in the morning,
10 o'clock.
Tuesday, here.
Correct, and the second one is coming up on the 5th of October, I believe, but I'll double check that.
No, Friday?
No.
The Tuesday,
I believe it's
September 25th is Tuesday, the 5th of October is a Friday.
Right, it's
Yes.
this coming Tuesday,
Okay,
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock here. Okay,
Correct.
thank you. And that is negotiations.
That is the first session, correct. There will be others.
Thank you for doing that. All right, agenda item number 12, the next regular scheduled council meeting, which is October 3rd. So what do we have?
Okay, well, we have a lot.
Okay.
What we're going to strike, number 3, which is the BMAP, which is the Basin Management Action Plan, and we're going to roll that into the other workshops for the Stormwater Master Plan and so on. In the mid-reach renourishment, we thought we'd either do, a big workshop or, get all these folks together at one time, and Alan thought that sometime in November would be a good time for that, so we're going to strike that one. And Councilwoman Deanan had asked for the auditor's report at that, or at least to come to the meeting, and we will contact and try to set that up for the 3rd then. And I believe at that time, too, we had to reschedule the Lions Club because they're donating the beach wheelchair, and I believe we'll be able to store that at the fire station, so we've been working on that. So that will be on the agenda, Scott. You can see that it will work out better on the 3rd.
They're very excited. They've
I'm
had
sure.
it for a couple months, and they're
I
very
know,
excited
I
to
know,
do the presentation.
and soon they will give it. So, and we're also going to have a report from the PZAB to council on non-conforming docks, because they had met and they wanted to give council the report, and they have interesting suggestions. So other than that, we've got the site plan at Las Olas. We're also, and again, I may move something off because, as you said, Mayor, that is a pretty heavy agenda, because we've got on there special events coordinator, volunteer coordinator, local vendor preference, discuss well, the proposal on grant writing should be quick, with the pay-as-you-go portion added, and then the ordinance establishing basically a policy or notification requirements for vacation of easements and rights of way.
Historically, the second meeting in October is sometimes canceled.
We were looking and we couldn't find any second cancellation, but it sounded good.
Last year, we didn't do it.
Was that November rather than October?
So, but I'm not saying that, but you have probably a lot of space on the 19th if you want to push some stuff from the 3rd.
Is that the 17th?
The 3rd, yes, sorry, 3rd, 10th, 17th.
Yeah, and we will do that on a few of those. But again, the first ones that we mentioned, I think, are definitely
We do have
important.
some special, we do want to talk to the auditors.
Yes.
And we want to do some other stuff.
So
I'll
is
leave
it,
it up to you.
right, so I'll, unless somebody has an objection, I'll move some of those items, then I'll bump them to the 17th.
That'd be good.
Yeah. I do have some questions. On Las Olas, I think they should be moved to the front of the agenda. Those poor folks sat here, you know, it's a minor site plan, and they sat here for
It's
hours
a long
the
time.
other night, so.
Especially in front of signs, because signs
Okay,
is probably
so
going to be discussable.
why don't we put that
Sorry,
first
sorry,
then?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Okay.
And then why did the citizens' comments get moved to the end? I know we had a discussion about it, and we decided to leave it the way it was. So
Oh, I think only for these two,
for the budget meetings, because of the budget, okay.
because we had time certains
Yeah,
on those.
exactly.
And,
And then I know that I have requested this, and I know that Councilman Billman has it at meetings. I would still like to see an ordinance addressing the sick and vacation payout. We've asked for it over and over and over and over again, and I know the personnel policy handbook is going to be updated, but it's one of those things where it hasn't been done since 1987. It's changed via ordinance, and we need to start making changes.
And we have been looking at that and writing some of those changes, but again, we have actually been advised by the labor attorney to wait until we get into negotiations on this, because that affects, you know, that's going to affect how that affects everybody or select employees and so on. So that was the suggestion on that.
Well, I think we need to add that to, a lot of the items I've been bringing up are not ending up on, for future meetings. I would like, the FOP contract is up for negotiation, expired in September.
Mm-hmm.
I know that that's an issue. There was an attorney, McGilligrath, that is contracted by the pension board. Remember
Yeah,
James
remember
McGilligrath? He came twice, he's disappeared. And it was all about how to deal with the pension planning, as his contract was with the city and also the pension board.
Wasn't that going to FRS?
I don't.
I remember he talked about us going into FRS.
Yeah, I think that's what it, I sent that
Kinda-
report out
Kinda gave
again.
an update and then gave an update and then just disappeared. McGilligrath, James McGilligrath?
I know who you mean.
May 16th.
Right, I sent that out just this last week too, or so.
McGilligrath. I had requested also that we work on an advertisement policy for the Beachcaster. It's a shame that we have no policy and there are potential advertisers out there, and we can't solicit them or get them to help pay for the Beachcaster.
I think that before you do any advertising like that, I think that we need to have a conversation about that issue, because it's a First Amendment issue, and I'm not sure that you can actually adopt a policy that you're looking for.
Okay, well then change it to, rather than the policy, then a discussion regarding, yeah, I'm not in the loop. I didn't know that was an issue. The Hunt Pinnacle $75,000 is an issue if it has to go back to them. And then we've talked about this before, and it hasn't ended up as a future agenda item, are the classes and the rec fees. We need to still keep plugging along because next year we got to keep chiseling away at decreasing that millage rate.
And Carrie just turned something into me today that I think you'll find interesting because she really does look at that and she has a good recap.
I think the frustration is that the issues don't come up for future meetings. They're not on the list. The list is going away, but there's a lot of other issues. And I have, unfortunately, I forgot the rest of them, but I had emailed them and I would like to see them on the future meeting list. And I'm concerned about 13. I don't know. I don't think that's a priority. Ordinance establishing notification requirements for vacation of easements and right-of-ways. We have a policy. We've done it via resolution. That could probably drop off. It's my understanding that someone is going to challenge us regarding that vacation. Have you been contacted regarding that?
We have not.
But we have a policy, and I don't know who requested that or why that's an issue, but I don't think it's an important issue.
I just think that we were going to discuss resolution ordinance on future vacations. We did two vacations with resolutions, but resolutions are not permanent. Ordinances are. And Mr. Bede, we were just going to talk about, should we have an ordinance 2 readings on any vacations in the future?
And I think you would have to establish an entire section in your land development regulations on how to handle vacations of right-of-ways. You just can't. It's more than just do you do an ordinance or do a resolution. So it can be a topic for discussion, but it's just. It looked to me like you were going to, we were going to.
I don't think
write an ordinance establishing notification for requirements. But if it's just going to be a discussion, I'm fine with that. But I'm not going to an ordinance to jump in for that is, I think, really premature, given it's not even addressed in our land development regulations.
Also on pending, the beach caster. Now that we have put 17,000 in there, I think we need to formalize the committee, the process.
I agree.
Rather than just not catch as catch can, but like this one, we had 4 people that stepped up to the mic and said, "I want to do this." We probably need to do something more formal.
And by the way, the proof is ready. It's ready to go.
Okay, good. We got to get.
Oh, with the beach caster, I think it's 20,000. And no, it's more than that. It's 20. I looked at I was going through line by line, and also 2,500 for mailing, so it's 22.5 in the budget total.
Oh, I thought it. Okay,
Yeah.
So that's good. So we need a process
Big expenditure.
Yeah, it is. Okay, thank you, Ann. Anything else? That should be busy. And just so everyone knows, we do have a CRA meeting on the 27th, which is a week from tomorrow. But that's only to find a budget amendment process for 2011-2012 budget. That's the only thing. It's not a formal CRA meeting.
A lot of that money for the beach caster is postage. Isn't that right?
About half of it,
20,
I think.
yeah.
Well, the last meeting we were here, I heard that the junior ROTC folks were looking for something to volunteer for. And it just occurs to me that we are spinning our wheels again by not taking advantage of some of these volunteers and the opportunities to utilize their skills. These folks would be perfect to spread the beach caster around if all we do is figure out who needs to have it delivered. Who needs to have it delivered? That's a key piece of information. If we just get that information, we can have those people deliver those beach casters, right? And the rest of the folks will probably be perfectly happy to get it online.
And I think you're going to see that happen. Not with this first issue. We just, in my opinion, we already have someone basically selected as a volunteer coordinator, special events coordinator, and that individual can coordinate all of these types of things, work with department heads and so on to do issues, as well as deal with these cadets to see if they're going to get out and help deliver them.
We're not taking advantage of this issue, the beach caster, because we need to have something in there that says if you want to receive future copies of the beach caster delivered, all right, you need to call this phone number. all right? If you don't call, you don't get the Beachcaster delivered anymore. That's all you have to do. The rest of the folks will be able to access it online. But for those folks who need it delivered to their home, they should sign up for it, and then you've got a subscription list, and volunteers can handle that.
I think we have something like that in the Beachcaster that indicates for email.
You have an
and-
email on the last page. I'm not sure.
Can I interject?
Yes.
With that last publication, our city staff already has a list.
That's right.
You already have a list of
We're
people that
using
need
that.
it.
For those that want it email versus those that want it by mail. There is an existing list.
There is an
We can add
existing-
to that list.
But we're adding to that as we go along with the request
But then-
box on the Beachcaster.
Simplifies the process.
Okay, so then we should be able to, first of all, we need to say, okay, Junior ROTC, we have a great opportunity for you, all right? And
That's
so
right.
take advantage of that.
And we need someone to organize that, and that's what we're doing.
There are 140 kids.
All right, I'm happy.
Thank you. All right, agenda item number 13, adoption of minutes. We have a July 23rd, and August 1st, and August 8th, and August 15th, regular special workshop minutes in front of us.
I didn't get through all these minutes.
Do you have, no, August 8th? August 8th is scratched. I have
Correct, it's
July 23rd, okay, sorry.
July 18th.
I have August 1st.
And then there's-
I have an August 15th. That's it,
That's it.
those three.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the special meeting minutes of the July 23rd council meeting.
Do you want to do them all? Or do you want to just?
Okay, that's fine. I'd like to make a motion to accept all council meeting minutes as presented, July 23rd, August 1st, and August 15th.
You said August 8th also.
We don't have it. We don't have it.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman French, second by Vice Mayor Rhodes. Lenore?
Citizen comments?
It is an agenda item. What do you got, Ron?
Ron Jagutis, resident, Satellite Beach. My agenda packet doesn't contain the minutes. I have not made this an issue in the past. I believe going forward some way before you approve minutes, especially with citizens' comments, they should be provided in the agenda packet for citizens to review also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are they posted elsewhere?
Just at the, and I will tell you that the minutes have been changed so that it'll just be who, what, when, where, and why, and other stuff will be see the video. Okay. Lenore?
Councilmember Billman?
Yes.
Speed of light, travel slow.
I think he's eating dinner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhodes?
Yes.
Councilman French?
Yes.
Mayor Longman?
Yes, and motion passes. Thank you, Lenore, for doing that, and thank you very much, everyone. Another record setter. This is great. Getting home early. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, Council.
Okay. Thanks for
The one thing
Oh,
oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, can't wait to see the applicants.